Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. I did my members-only live stream. That's the first one we've done of those. It went really well. We had a fun time, did a little bit of a Q&A, talked about some hodgepodge of things, talked about addiction, mental health, narcissism, all sorts of things. And if you want to be a part of the next members-only live stream, make sure you become a member. Doesn't matter what level of membership you have, any members can be a part of the members only live stream. No Hype. No Hype was part of the members only live stream. Glad to see you back here. And yes, it was a while ago now I ended, but I had to figure out what we were talking about tonight. And I finally figured it out. So what we're trying to talk about is how the Guthrie family is not very happy with Ashleigh Banfield. Now you can argue whether they're justified in being unhappy with her or not, but that's what's going on. So, hello there, Dana, D, Jolly, No Hype, Kat, Mavs. Very happy to see everyone here. Tim. You've seen me around. Christy, welcome. Just Chaos, welcome. Let's see here. So today, like I said, we're going to go over a little bit about why the Guthrie family is upset, in particular Savannah Guthrie, and we'll explore it. We'll explore some of the things that are going on with that. Yes, it's been ages, Mavs. You've all gone into the Shepherd of Black Sheep withdrawal. Hello there, Kay. Welcome. One day, we will see every person in here with green or blue next to the name. Wouldn't that be fantastic? It has been too long. You're right, Tim. Definitely correct. Donna, welcome. Yes, while you come in here, please remember to like the video. Likes are free. Likes are from my spirit animal, Shadow the Night Owl. Come say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat. We've got an awesome group of people here. And usually I go live a little earlier than this usually, but a little bit after 10 p.m. Eastern because we got people in here from all over the world. And I talk about true crime and current events. And I give my own unique perspective on those things, of course.
Speaking of the media, there's been a report now by Radar Online, but they're citing Rob Schuster, who's a British-American celebrity reporter and royal insider. He's a frequent guest of The Nerve and our pal Maureen, and he hosts his own show called Naughty But Nice. And he had reported this, and now Radar Online is reporting it as well, that Savannah Guthrie's family is actively exploring the possibility of legal action against our pal Ashleigh Banfield following Ashleigh's exclusive about the brother-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, who's married to Savannah's sister, Annie, being at...
So here's a caveat. If it's Italian, it's Cioni, C-H. That's how you pronounce it. I was pronouncing it as Megyn Kelly just did, Cioni, for a while. But it wasn't until I realized, no, it's Cioni, Tommaso Cioni, if it's an Italian pronunciation.
That time may be, she said, the prime suspect in this case. Here's the reporting of February 3rd, SOT 28.
But they have towed Annie Guthrie's car. And there is some connection to Annie Guthrie's car and Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law. That would be Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni, age 50, from Tucson, Arizona, married to Annie P. Guthrie, Savannah's sister. And my law enforcement source tells me that Tommaso Cioni is the prime suspect in this case. Again, law enforcement source tells me that...
And again, prime suspect, right? I wasn't sure if she had said that, but she did say prime suspect.
Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law, married to Annie Guthrie, Savannah's sister, is maybe a prime suspect in this case. At the very least, let me tamp that down, because sometimes it's the first person you're looking at, not prime as in there's no one else. Okay, so let's be really mindful of that. When anything happens like this, familial abductions, the family's looked at first, and Annie and or Thomas O'Cioni were the last people to see Nancy Guthrie at 9:45 at night. But it's very distressing to think that this law enforcement source is telling me that Thomas O'Cioni is maybe a prime suspect in this case at this point, and that the car belonging to Annie has been towed and impounded and is in evidence.
Now, I have not been able to confirm.
So before we get into what they say about it, the guy in the middle here, of course, is part of TMZ, not Harvey, but Harvey's partner there. But what do you think about what Ashleigh said there? Do you think Ashleigh did anything wrong with what she reported that her law enforcement source said? Or do you think no, she's just doing her job? So press 1 if you think, no, she shouldn't have done that. 2, no, she's just doing her job. And that's all there is to it. So 1, now she went too far. 2, she's just doing her job.
That the Guthrie family wants to sue Ashleigh Banfield, but I have confirmed that Savannah is livid about that report and definitely does not suspect her sister or her brother-in-law. Can you blame her? I mean, that's, of course, she loves her sister. I'm sure she loves her brother-in-law, and I'm sure she genuinely doesn't believe they had anything to do with it. All of us are in a different boat. We have to be more objective in assessing the possible suspects, the possible people connected with it, and law enforcement certainly does. And Ashleigh based this claim, Mark, on what she said a senior law enforcement source who had been a source for her for years, who she described as an impeccable source, told her. She's, so do you think there actually it would be a defamation claim by the Guthries against Ashleigh Banfield?
Let me tell you what I would do if Savannah came into my office or called me and asked me that question. I would say, look, I know you're out of your mind about this. I know you can't believe that this is being reported, but the tape that we just watched together couldn't be more protected under the law. And there is no way any thought that you have about suing, any claim that you think you have is going to be met by, depending on the jurisdiction it's brought in, what's called an anti-SLAPP, which is a strategic lawsuit against. What that will do is it will freeze the case.
This guy here is Garagos, right?
And a judge, when he gets it or she gets it, is going to rule that you have no ability to pursue a claim that, as framed, by the way, Ashleigh framed it. It's dead on arrival, pun intended, in terms of any kind of legal action.
So he's saying that there's going to be no legal action they can even take because she's just doing her job. And I would agree. The only thing you can question is the prime suspect part, but even so, it's still their job, right? So outside of that, the law enforcement source told her, I mean, you're allowed to say what you're told. Like, there's no rules against that. We live in a free society here. And the only rules against it would be inciting violence. And I don't think there's inciting violence in this case.
No,
Why?
there. Whatsoever. Because you have the...
Now, that's just legally, though, too. Now, ethically / morally, that can be a different question sometimes, right? Because sometimes, okay, an example of that would be, what if you think it's going to hurt the case to say this? Well, yeah, it's legal to say this. There's nothing, I can't get sued. They can take no legal action against me. But what if it hurts the case? What do you do then? That's the ethical, moral consideration.
Ability, number one, because it's you could find any judge who's looking at this, any lawyer who's involved is going to tell you, of course, they're looking at the family members. It would be malpractice not to, and that's exactly what Ashleigh said. Number two, the media is, as long as they are reporting and they have source protection, you're never going to be able to disprove what Ashleigh Banfield said. Source protection. This has been, by the way, Megan, one of the great frustrations when I'm trying a high-profile case. When a judge gags me and says, you, Mr. Garrigus, your team and the prosecution team, as lawyers, cannot comment on this case. This is attorney's eyes only on some discovery. Well, what ends up happening, the law enforcement leaks the information. How do I ever prove that? I can't, because there is source protection. So that source protection, which is robust, is always going to be a wall that you're never going to be able to climb over.
So what about it, Matt? I mean, what if they did sue, saying this turned into a complete shit show where this poor guy who is a victim, as the sheriff said, when you do this kind of thing, the somebody who, he may not be the prime suspect, he may actually be just a victim, who was a victim, had all this focus on him. I mean, everybody, yours truly, Brian Enton, everybody who's been in depth covering this story started talking a lot more about the brother-in-law as a result of that report. And if they say, we don't believe her law enforcement source, we think she made it up, or we think her law enforcement source ought to be sued as well because that was complete bullshit from the beginning that caused us to come under undue scrutiny, might they have a case?
Well, I think Mark's exactly right. We both dealt with this in California. It's called anti-slap. I don't know what they would call it in Arizona, but basically, what did she say? She said he's a suspect, and
maybe,
and so
the prime suspect.
Yeah, what exactly is that? He was the last person to see her. That's not Ashleigh's fault. And full disclosure, I really like Ashleigh Banfield.
Same.
I know her personally. I think she's a great
solid
journalist.
Reporter.
She's a solid reporter, and what she's doing is she's reporting what a source told her. She doesn't say he did it and here's why. She says, I've got information from a law enforcement source who says he is a prime suspect. And even though we've heard that, I think there's even TV shows called Prime Suspect at one point or another. What exactly does that mean? What is a suspect? A suspect means it's somebody that the police are looking at that they suspect, is right there in the word, might have done it. And the entire world is a suspect in a whodunit like this. And Mark's right. It goes nowhere. These are incredibly emotional situations for the family. Wouldn't be the first time that Radar Online has been radically wrong. But again, going back to what Mark said originally, and I think he's exactly right, all roads lead back to the sheriff. If this is a leak from his shop, it's kind of rich that the guy who brought the media in, his department is leaking information. I mean, it could be the FBI, but still it's his show. He wanted to be at the helm of the ship. He's responsible for that at the end of the day. And I had a great quote once on a high-profile case I was working on where high-placed people in the Orange County Sheriff's Department kept leaking information under an old sheriff who actually wound up going to federal prison that Mark knows all about. They kept leaking information on my Samantha Runyon case and was driving everybody crazy. And my old boss pulled me in and he said, leaks are like ghosts. They seem really scary at first. At the end of the day, they'll never hurt your case. And chasing them is like chasing ghosts. You're never going to catch one. Nobody's ever going to admit it. But at the end of the day, who is responsible for the integrity of this investigation? It's the same sheriff that's complaining about it. I think Mark's right. It goes nowhere. I would also counsel them, this is a terrible situation you're in. You're very emotional. Of course, they're going to look at everybody in the family. This is not a hill to die on, guys, because it's not going to go anywhere. They would lose. In my opinion, and then it winds up they're even more brokenhearted because now, in addition to all the horror that they're experiencing, they can throw a tanked lawsuit on top of all that. I would give.
But you have two things. First of all, you have the fact that he was the last person to see her alive, and also they towed the car that he and Annie Guthrie drive, and it's remained in police custody this entire time. In fact, just yesterday, Brian Enton reported that they may be getting ready to release that car back to them. And they searched their car in the dark of night with flash bulbs going off, or they were photographing a bunch of stuff. Like, the media would have asked itself whether these two were under scrutiny by law enforcement from day one, as soon as we found out that they towed that car, which happened to be the same day that she said Tommaso was a prime suspect at the time. It's like, this was coming with or without Ashleigh Banfield. And the other thing, Matt, is if they did, let's say they said, we don't care, we're suing anyway. I got to be honest, it's kind of a dream for a person in Ashleigh's situation, because then I get all sorts of discovery from you on whether what I said is true. Now I'm really going to get up in your business and find out.
So, I mean, the same reason why most people probably wouldn't want cameras in their face, right? So they've just had, I mean, Annie's just had her mother like abducted, maybe murdered. And then there's press like taking pictures in your face. You're probably not going to like that. Innocent or not, you're just not going to like it. So that's one reason to hide.
Everything law enforcement knows about whether you in fact may have done this.
Yeah, I hope they don't go down that road. I really do. It's it'd be a tragic distraction to all of this.
Think about this. In 2006,
All right. So on to the next video by Megan Kelly. But while you're here, please remember to like the video. Likes are tax-free. Leave your DNA on that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I go live a little bit after 10 p.m. Eastern on most nights. And come say hello to the flock of black sheep here in the live chat. We got a great group of people. And I use my experience with narcissism, being on the autistic spectrum, mental health and addiction, and narcissistic family systems to give my unique perspective on true crime and current events.
So Garagos, I haven't heard your take on the Nancy Guthrie case. What is it?
Not that different from my friend and partner, Matt Murphy. This sheriff, I think, all roads lead to this sheriff. And I think that, it's not a surprise that I have some criticism of law enforcement. But in this particular case, this may be kind of a blueprint for how you don't investigate a case, how you don't handle the messaging around a case. And it's a tragedy anyway. Everybody has, their heart goes out to it, but this sheriff has just been atrocious, in my opinion.
Do you have any theory, Garagos, just given your lifetime in, criminal defense work, on whether this was a likely kidnapping, a likely murder, and then removal of the body?
I always thought that the focus on the family first, which I understand and I get, but I thought that being a bi-coastal elite and living between LA and New York, I missed what people were saying initially who were on the ground there, that look, you're very close to the border. These things happen. I think there was another, I won't call it similar case, but something that had kind of the earmarks of an abduction, and that it probably was a stranger abduction for money at a certain point, and it spiraled out of control because of the supersizing of the case itself.
Totally disagree with that. He said it was an abduction or a robbery that spiraled out of control for Ransom. No, I think he's saying that because TMZ was the one amplifying all of those ransom notes. And I think all of those ransom notes were probably fake, if you ask me. I mean, chat, do you think any of those ransom notes were real? Press 1 if you think any of them were real. Press 2 if you think no, they were all fake and just someone trying to exploit and take advantage of the situation. So 1, any of them were real. 2, no, all fake and just someone trying to exploit the situation.
Interesting. Okay, so Matt Murphy, you have been covering this from the beginning. And yesterday here on our show, we dropped a bit of a bombshell ourselves where we found video of Nancy Guthrie's bedroom, which aired on the Today Show in 2013. I mean, we were stunned to see it ourselves. We're putting together this Nancy Guthrie bit and we were doing some deep research, and there it was in 2013. There's Nancy. Look at this, standing in her bedroom. This is in the house from which she was taken back in 2013, though. And it shows her bed. It shows the nightside table. It shows the window right next to the bed, very tight quarters there. And in this long back and forth she did with the Today Show anchors on the set of the Today. And to me, I wondered whether law enforcement even knew this existed, because you and I, after having looked at this, could credibly convince law enforcement that we knew what Nancy's bedroom looked like, how it was set up, And if we wanted to write, let's say, a demand for ransom in Bitcoin and send it in and sound credible, we might take a detail from the outside of the house that was readily identifiable to anybody, like the floodlight that was dangling, and couple it with a few details from the inside of Nancy's bedroom, which we had seen thanks to a little bit of research prior to sending our notes, and convince somebody that we were the kidnappers.
Well, that's right. I mean, there's, as they say, the internet lives forever, right? And, I think that, number one, I totally agree with Mark that all roads lead back to this sheriff. And look, I want to be fair, Megan, but this has been a clown show from day one. You've got really good law enforcement on the ground, especially in the.
So Garagos and him, they are not fans of Sheriff Nanos. They're not the biggest fans of local law enforcement because they think it's been a clown show since day one. And honestly, it's kind of hard to disagree with that, especially when you remember what Sergeant Cross told Brian Etten, Sergeant Cross, former current union leader, and then former Undersheriff Rick Castiger. What he said about Sheriff Nanos, not very flattering.
FBI, but I've dealt with Pima County on a big murder case out of Orange County, and they were top notch. They were absolutely professional. I don't know what has happened to Pima County since.
Well, reportedly, a bunch of cops fled and did not like working for him, and that he's lost a lot of his more experienced.
Well, who could have ever guessed that based on the performance that we've seen? I mean, it's just. I think Mark put it perfectly. It's so sad. But yeah, so many of these. I think all of them, but if not every single one of them, most all of these ransom notes were all fake. All the stuff to Mark's friend Harvey Levin, I think those were all fake. And
the Nancy Guthrie home video adds to that possibility. That's my point. Is like, did they know? Did the sheriff know that? Because they were like, oh, they had a detail like where her watch was. I mean, I could easily say her watch was on the small bedside table right next to her bed with the old style sort of lantern looking lamp feet away from a window that was over a bookshelf that had electronics on it. I mean, I guarantee you Chef Nanos did not know about that video and could easily have bought the whole thing as credible evidence that this guy had been in her room.
Well, Chris Nanos demonstrated to the entire nation that he didn't know what a DNA mixture was in one of his interviews, which when he said the lab is having problems with the mixture in Florida, which is there's some lab director who's pulling his hair out or her hair out when they heard that, which is just, it's absurd. So this guy's, I don't know how old he is. I don't know what the deal is. But that it just, there are hardworking, women and men in law enforcement on the ground level on this that probably haven't slept a full 8 hours since this thing started, and they're being misserved. I think the family's being misserved. And, you call in the media, you got to expect, the loonies are going to come out and say the vampires abducted her. You got a lot of well-meaning people that are going to come in with tips trying to help that almost never go anywhere. And Mark and I have dealt with a million of those where it's like, I heard noises down the street and it turns out it's the raccoons in the trash can again. Or I heard a lady screaming, but it could be my neighbor's wife. You deal with all those. You got to devote resources to those. And now in the modern era, we have scammers who attempt to take advantage and profit from the apoplectic grief of families that are going through the worst thing that a family can go through. And at the helm of this, sinking ship is this guy that keeps taking to the microphones. Although I think he stopped doing that a little bit. He's doing one-on-one interviews, and now he's coming back blasting the media on stuff. He brought the media in at the very beginning of this, and I've got no criticism of that. But it's like, dude, you gotta be prepared to answer some questions, know your evidence, and take a little bit of heat and criticism. That goes with the job.
I mean, honestly, every missing person, their family in this nation would give anything to have the kind of media coverage of the case that Nancy Guthrie has received. The media is a blessing, not a curse. There's some downside of it. I don't deny that, but it's way more upside in having this much media attention on the case because they require 400 officers. That's how we got 400 officers on Nancy Guthrie. It wasn't just because Savannah was the daughter. It's because the media was constantly out there, constantly peppering them with demands for more information. So please spare me on the media blame. And I don't love the media, even just because I'm a part of it. I wouldn't say this if I didn't actually believe it.
Yeah, blaming the media is not the right way to go in this one. Local law enforcement needs to take responsibility. Yeah, you opened up the crime scene too soon. You did that. You should have waited for the FBI, and you should have probably turned it over to the FBI sooner because they have more resources and better equipment, and they have more knowledge about this kind of thing. So I think there was some hubris there, some arrogance there, some miscommunications there. They could have handled it better.
Think about this.
But do you think that? Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. I really, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I appreciate all your support since I've been here in Arizona today. It's day 40 in the search for Nancy Guthrie, which I can't believe it's now been.
Day 40 we're at. Holy mackerel. But remember to like the video. Likes are free. Leave your DNA on that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Super chats are a great way to support the channel and get questions answered. Super stickers, great way to support the channel. And becoming a channel member gives you access to the members only live streams. We had the first one of those earlier today. Had a grand old time. Talked about a bunch of different things. But those are for you. Right? Whatever you guys want to talk about is what we would talk about in those members only live streams. But with that, I do go live every night a little bit after 10 p.m. Eastern, like usually 5 or 6 nights a week. And thank you very much for all the support I've been getting so far. It's been awesome.
40 days. I'm actually on I-10 right now, driving back to Tucson from Phoenix. This is Mo, who's been with me the whole time. Shout out to Mo, doing an amazing job behind the scenes. We were actually in Phoenix. I'm going to have more on this tomorrow, but doing a story about DNA and what might be happening in the Guthrie case. Really, really fascinating, but I'll have that for you tomorrow. In this episode, though, I'm looking into something that I hadn't thought about much until now, and it's kind of disturbing to think about, but the question of whether the person who is responsible for this, the person who is responsible for Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, could they do this again? Will they reoffend? Could them reoffending actually be when they get caught? I'm going to dig into it in this episode of Brian Enton Investigates.
So I don't think, I mean, considering I think this was a targeted attack, and then the next question is, okay, if it's targeted, were they hired? Because if these are just hired guns, then sure, they might try to do something else. But considering how much attention is on this case, you're a hired gun, you probably want to lay low for a while. That's what I would think. Especially if you're the dude that has that tattoo on his right hand there. You want to lay low, and you probably want to wear long sleeves for a while too, if I had to guess, right? But what do you think, chat? Do you think they'll try to offend again in some way soon? And by what way do I mean offend? Anyway, anything. Just petty crime. Could be a more severe crime. Could be anything. But press 1 if you think they will reoffend, or press 2 if you think they're going to lay low.
Joined now by Steve Moore, retired FBI special agent. It's nice to see you, Steve. Thank you for joining me again. I always enjoy talking to you. The first thing I wanted to ask you about that I was thinking about today that a lot of people have been asking me is, why do you think no one has come forward yet? I mean, when this $1 million reward came out, plus the, $100,000 from the FBI, I think there was this thought that an accomplice or that someone would make a phone call, would want the money.
Yeah.
Why do you think we are where we are on that front?
It could, I think if the Bureau knew that, they'd be a long way down the road. But I think the reason is most likely the fact that the only people who have knowledge of this are culpable. And so I think what's going to happen here is that whatever they've done it in such a way, the bad guys have done it in such a way that they've kept it from other people. And there may be people out there who have provided information that will one day be determined to have been valuable, but it wasn't viewed as such at the time.
But you don't think that an accomplice at this point would have been tempted by the money? And you and I have been talked before. I mean, there's ways that they can also get the money and also get a deal.
Yeah, they can get a deal, but if and the horrible thing is true that Nancy is no longer alive, there's not going to be a good deal for you. And how are you going to spend $1 million when you're going to be in prison for most of the rest of your life?
So you're not surprised that no one has come forward at this point?
No. And rewards usually have pretty strong limits on the fact that if you're involved in it, if you're culpable for it, you're not going to get the reward.
Yeah. Another big question that I've been getting that I wanted to ask you is Annie Guthrie, who is Savannah's sister. Her car was towed early on, like, days after this whole thing started. So more than a month ago, by law enforcement. The sheriff has said that they are officially, everyone in the family is officially cleared as suspects. But as recently as yesterday, when we checked in with investigators, they still haven't returned the car. They say, "Oh, we're in the process of returning the car." Why do you think that is? I mean, why wouldn't they just give the car back?
There's several reasons. I honestly, I can't tell you why they haven't done that already. Frequently, you'll get situations where you keep a vehicle for a long time, to where the people are just pushing on you and knocking on your door and saying, "Where's my car?" But I've not had a problem in eventually getting those things back, especially when they are important to the person who is the owner. I mean, maybe they have another car that they're not using, or they are using now, and they're not pushing the FBI to return it. So the FBI is taking their time about it. But if it is a car that they need, it's kind of curious. Maybe the FBI has provided them with a rental. Those things happen. And so then.
So what's the explanation, though? I mean, I don't think he's mentioned it, but like, what are they looking for? Or what are they trying to make sure? Are they trying to match DNA with something that's in her car? I mean, why would you do that, though? Unless you think it had something to do with it. I'm a little confused myself. Maybe they're just trying to play it extra safe. But chat, what do you think? What's the reason why they still have her car?
Her sister's family wouldn't be as interested in getting it back right now.
Yeah, it just seems like if you went out of your way to put out a statement saying you've officially cleared the family 100%, like, why wouldn't they just get their car back?
Well, yeah, and I understand that, but there are issues, and I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that specifically, it takes manpower to go through all the processes of releasing it back to you, and maybe they are more interested in having that manpower working the cases. Could be that the FBI is just has been dragging their feet. Maybe they've partially disassembled the car. Maybe parts of it they don't want to give back. Maybe they took the carpets out and don't want to return the carpets. Or, and this is not unusual at all, say they did take the carpets out or a seat out or anything like that, then they would have sent it to the lab in Washington, D.C. So what's happening now is maybe half the cars in Quantico, Virginia.
Really? So you think they would have even sent parts? I remember when the pictures finally came out of Brian Koberger's car after the FBI went through it. I mean, like, the seat cushions were taken out, the steering wheel was taken apart, the gear shifter was. It looked like they had, like you said, basically disassembled the inside of the car. But I never thought about them maybe even sending parts of Annie's car to Quantico. I guess that could explain the delay.
Yeah, it frequently. Say you have a blood stain on a piece of carpet. The FBI.
Here's the other piece, right? Savannah's husband. I'm imagining Savannah's husband was with Savannah the night it happened. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but is that not true? Was Savannah's husband traveling somewhere? Now, that doesn't mean that it's not a possibility that someone hired them. Maybe he hired whoever did, but I haven't heard anything in regard to him being connected to this at all. I don't know what the motive would be. I don't know. So I'm not saying there's any connection. But people were asking, why aren't people talking about him?
FBI doesn't want to, the FBI policy is don't cut that out. Send the entire unit to Quantico. They're not going to do all the lab work in Tucson, so it is going to be sent there. So you might have to send an entire car seat, which they probably won't disassemble, because if you disassemble the car seat, you're contaminating what you touch. So I think it's very possible that large portions or large pieces of the car went to Quantico, and then Quantico has to go through, the middle name of FBI is bureaucracy. It's a bureau. And so they have to go through all sorts of hoops. They have to jump through hoops to return it. And it's not just up to the FBI. The FBI can't release evidence on a case until the United States Attorney's Office has authorized the release of evidence that they might potentially want someday for trial.
Do you think we should be worried at all that the person responsible for this could do this again? I mean, is there a public safety concern here?
Yes, yeah, I think so. I'm no longer in the 100% in the camp that this was a planned ransom kidnapping. The ransom note came kind of late, and they didn't really try to provide proof of life. So I think it's possible that this was something different. And if that is the case, and even if to a certain extent it was a ransom kidnapping, it could happen again, because they've apparently, at least they think they've gotten away with it. They may have gotten away with it for a while before they're caught. But the thing, if it's not a kidnapping, the things that drove them to this crime will reoccur. Those, if they needed money, they'll need money again. If they are deviant in any way, shape, or form, they're still going to be deviant after not being caught. So there's nothing to tell me that these people won't try again. In fact, if it was an actual kidnapping, the only thing that would make them want to do it again is that they didn't get caught. If it was a kidnapping, they went through an immense amount of trouble, immense amount of planning, risked their lives essentially, got through all of this and didn't get a dime. So I don't think they're going to look favorably. They're not going to say, hey, that worked great, let's do it again. So I think the least chance of them recurring is if it was a kidnapping because it didn't work. But I think it's very possible, and getting more possible every day, that they were driven by money or the problems of a human brain.
What do you mean by that?
I think it's possible that this has to do with violence or sexual activity or pure robbery or randomness.
Yeah, and I've talked about this.
So basically, he said it has to do with anything, and he didn't narrow it down. I don't think robbery. I don't think ransom. I think a punishment of some sort, specifically at Savannah Guthrie, is what I would say. Revenge, punishment. So, like I said, and I don't know if suing someone always makes you look guilty. I just think you don't like the reputational damage that might have been done.
A couple times, but I just, in my brain, I hate to go down that road when we've talked about different motivations for this, and obviously sexual reasons are one of them, and you just don't like to think about that with an older, really any time, but especially with an older woman. But I guess statistically that is a thing, right?
It is so horrible to me. I don't even like to discuss it. So all I will say is that it is not statistically irrelevant at all. It is something that society has to deal with, and it's so horrible that the media doesn't even publish stories about it usually.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, you don't even want to. It's like there's just certain things with like old people and kids you just don't even want. Your brain doesn't even really want to go there.
Yeah.
But do you think that there should be more of a responsibility? Like we don't hear anyone in law enforcement saying that people should be careful because this could possibly happen again. You know what I mean? I mean that.
Wait a minute. We got a super chat from Mike. Thank you for this, Mike. Super chat's a great way to support the channel. Was Megan being snarky about Ashleigh? No, I think Megan likes Ashleigh, not Brian. This is not Mike. Excuse me. This is Brian. Thank you, Brian. I saw the blue and assumed it was Mike, but it's not. It's Brian. But no, I don't think Megan was being snarky about Ashleigh. Megan likes Ashleigh, as does that whole panel. Thank you for the super chat.
That element of it isn't really coming out in the dialogue.
And I guess, that would be an ethical question that that people could wrestle with back and forth. When you are an FBI agent or a detective for the sheriff's department, you tend to work to focus on the crime and not be philosophical about what's next unless it hits you right in the face. Like they will definitely do this again. We've got to do something. Or they tried something, they didn't get away with it, and we know they're going to try again. Yes, then. But if you don't know exactly what the whole situation is yet, because you haven't caught the people, then it's hard to come up with more than a thought that, yeah, I can't rule it out. And you have to.
Savannah Guthrie is livid at Ashleigh Banfield and the fact that she reported that Tommaso Cioni was a prime suspect. That's why she's upset.
Weigh the possibility of frightening an entire populace over this.
Yeah, that's what I always feel like sheriffs and police chiefs are always more worried about, sort of people being scared and just trying to keep everybody calm instead of saying like, yeah, it's possible that this person could strike again.
Right.
But it makes sense
right.
if you're
the FBI doesn't
case, you're just focused on what you're investigating.
Yeah. And when I worked counterterrorism, things like that, I'll just give you an example where you had a bombing or something, a terrorist bombing, and it was interdicted, but we didn't recover the explosives. And so at that point, we realized explosives are like fresh food. You can't just let them lay around. They tend to get destabilized depending on the explosives. So especially the cases I was working overseas, you knew that they had to dispose of the explosives within several weeks. And they did that by putting in other terrorist attacks. So if and when we interdicted a case and didn't get the explosives, we would put the word out. You've got a 2-week window where they've got to get rid of the explosives. And the best way to do it is another terrorist attack.
Yeah, makes sense. There was this interesting situation, Steve, that I found out about. I was talking with one of the neighbors, and a lot of these people have lived there for a long time, decades. And her sister also lives down the street. And she was telling me that the Friday after Nancy went missing, 2 people showed up to her sister's house with identified as FBI, asked to come inside, asked some questions in her house, wanted to look in the garage, asked if she had a pacemaker, which I thought was interesting, and then left. The sister thought there was something strange, specifically about, it was a man and a woman, about the man, and called some family who said, you should just call the police if you think there was something weird about it. So she called authorities. She actually called 911. And the sheriff's office and the FBI came out to her house. They ended up spending 4 hours there, taking fingerprints. They DNA swabbed her, and they said, we don't believe that these were real FBI agents. And this was right in the beginning, just days after Nancy went missing. I'm surprised I hadn't heard about this till now, but it was a 4-hour ordeal. They leave. She goes to bed frightened, thinking, oh my God, I let these people in my house. Then they call the next day and say, we actually did more checking, and they are legit FBI. You have nothing to worry about. But I guess I was just I'm still taken by that story.
And this is the story we talked about yesterday, where there was a lot of confusion. There's the woman and the guy from ERT, Emergency Response Team. And the woman's house that they went into, she didn't really know what was going on there because the woman was an FBI agent. But when the woman who lived there called local law enforcement was like, oh, that might have been a fake cop. We're going to come on over there and dust for prints and cross every T and dot every I. And they're like, oh, wait a minute. Actually, that was an FBI agent. And that guy was an ERT, part of the emergency response team. So there was a lot of confusion with that. And maybe that speaks to the fact that the FBI and local law enforcement were not on the same page in the beginning and they were not communicating well. Perhaps.
Like, I don't understand how. I know there was a lot of FBI agents here and everybody flooded in, but I would have just thought that it would have been more organized, that they would have been able to figure out who's who. And then also that they took 4 hours doing a crime scene investigation at her house, which just was a whole waste of time.
Yeah, that seems ridiculous to me. But keep in mind that what you're dealing with is Tucson up until that, and you're talking about very close into the time of the abduction or the missing person. So what you have had up until that crime is the Tucson office, which is relatively small. The agents are all going to be known to the sheriff's department. And so then you fly in agents from all over the country. Some are checking in as surveillance, some are checking in as lab people, and you get this massive influx of people. So then they send these agents, likely not from Tucson, or somebody would have recognized the names, and they don't clear the people who are doing the investigation don't make a notification that they're sending agents out to do investigation. So I can see how that would happen. I don't understand why, if the sheriff gets this call and they say, these are the agents who they said, these are the names they gave, or this is the business card they left, or this is what they look like, why the sheriff didn't call, or maybe he did, but why they didn't call the command post and say, do we have people already out there running leads? As far as agents getting, all they have to do is find one fingerprint, and agents' fingerprints are about as visible. From a data.
By the way, please remember to like the video. Likes are free. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Come say hello to the flock of black sheep here in the live chat. We've got a great group of people. And I go live almost every night, a little bit after 10 p.m. Eastern, to talk about true crime and current events.
Standpoint as ever. FBI agents' fingerprints are everywhere in databases, so they could fix that almost immediately. The other thing is you can always call the FBI generally, and they'll respond and at least get somebody to get back to you. As an aside, I think my dad was an FBI agent, and I was an FBI agent. I think we were the only father-son teams that during their careers were reported as impersonating FBI agents, because 40 years ago when I started in the FBI, or longer than that, I had a kind of a baby face, and my dad did also. And on one case of his and one case of mine, we went out to do an interview, and the person called the FBI and says, there's somebody here who claims to be an FBI agent, and I don't believe him.
Why did they say that? Because you look young?
With my dad, I think it was him looking young, and he came alone to an interview, and they expected agents to come with groups, and the person was concerned. And in my case, I was driving an undercover vehicle and used a government credit card to fill it up at a service station.
Oh, interesting. Would an FBI agent ever show up alone, or do they usually come in pairs?
They usually do, yes, but it's not unusual to do that. It just depends. If you're going to be interviewing somebody and the value of that information is extremely important, you're going to bring other agents along so nobody can dispute what they said or didn't say. If you're doing a background investigation on somebody, you'll probably come alone. There's no criminal case that depends on it.
When I heard this neighbor's story, though, and that especially that it was early on, I was just thinking of, we were reporting a lot that there was a breakdown in communication between the sheriff's office and the FBI, especially early on, that the sheriff's office wasn't sharing information with the FBI and that there was sort of this issue there. And I wondered if maybe that had something to do with it.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure that had something to do with it. And it could have been that the sheriff's department was a little miffed that agents might have been out already. Maybe they didn't notify the sheriff's department that they were out there interviewing, and the sheriff didn't do due diligence to find out if that was the case. I don't know. But the fact that the sheriff's department and FBI agents showed up, to me, means that it's the sheriff's department and the Tucson agents that they already knew were coming to this area and saying, hey, we know all the agents in Tucson here, and those don't match the description. And I think one of two things happened or should have happened at that point. Either they should have made a call to the command post, and if they did, the command post should have had the information more readily available. I think what it sounds like to me is that that there was some, when say you're a Tucson FBI agent, and this is your case actually, and the FBI, comes in like the 101st Airborne parachuting agents in.
So to answer the question about why it might be revenge, I think it could be an envy thing, could be a political thing, could be because of what maybe Savannah's husband has done and who he's helped. I'm not saying any of that is for sure. I'm just throwing out possibilities. But when it comes to envy, and maybe they think, oh, Savannah's doing much better than me, how can I knock her down a peg? Oh, well, this is one way to do it. And again, punishment, revenge, easily, I think that could be it.
All over the place. That's an analogy. You're going to feel a little bit cut off just the same way the sheriff is, because this is your town, this is your office, this is your case. And now Washington is flying hundreds of people in. So there is both, there can be a disconnect at the field office level, at the Tucson level. I'm not alleging it. I'm just saying that I've seen it. And the sheriff could have been upset. And the fact that they showed up together might have been a little bit of a combined miscommunication and or irritation.
One other thing I was wondering about is, she said that when they showed up, when we found out they were real FBI agents, they asked her if she had a pacemaker.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Why do you have? I wonder why they would be doing that.
Yeah.
We asked our surgical nurse in the chat, Bella, why would they do that? And she didn't know either. Maybe they're trying to get a baseline to see if their signal sniffer works or something. I don't know. But what other possible reason could they have for asking about a pacemaker in that woman's house? And that was the woman where the FBI woman and the guy who was an ERT, the house they went to, they were asking, oh, is there a pacemaker here? Why would they be asking that?
I don't know, unless there was a question of whether they thought a pacemaker signal could be tracked somehow or had been tracked. That's the only thing I can think of. It doesn't make sense to me, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make sense to somebody. As agents, we were sometimes given lists of questions that we didn't really understand the meaning, the reason for, because we didn't have every little bit of information in the case. So they would just say, find out if anybody in the house has a pacemaker, or find out if anybody in the house has a cousin who drives a blue car. Things that we don't even know sometimes why we're asking it, because the people who are running the case and have the full grasp of the entire case are not the ones who are out there generally in large cases like this doing the interviews.
So if you're the agent on the street doing the interviews, knocking on doors, you don't have the full picture necessarily. You're sometimes just asking the questions that they told you to ask.
Yeah, there's no way you can keep everybody briefed up on the case on a hourly basis as to what information you have at that time. And sometimes, see, here's the other thing. What FBI agents are a very independent group of people. They are trained, they're recruited to be that way.
I think whoever did it is probably going to lay low for a little bit. Think Godfather Part 1. Michael Corleone's character, he shoots the police chief and he shoots Salazzo. What does he do? They run off to Sicily to lay low. Because once you've committed a crime, the best thing to do is to get out of Dodge sometimes. So, and you see this in shows too, but it also happens in real life. Get out of Dodge. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they're doing.
Encouraged and trained to be that way. But at times, if this is not their case, you need to control their level of investigation into the case. You can't, you have to sometimes go from being a team player or being a lone wolf agent to being a team player. And so sometimes you don't want the entire case known to every single agent, because they would take logical steps to get information that they think is valuable. And maybe they don't want the agents to go down certain tracks yet.
Yeah, makes sense. It was also interesting. The other thing she said was that they wanted to look in her garage. What does that say?
Yeah, that makes. Again, they were probably looking to answer some questions that, you'll do your normal questions, the normal interview things that every agent knows to do, but then they would give them a list of specifics that would be of interest to the investigation. They might have been looking for a car. But the fact that they said garage doesn't necessarily mean it's a car. So obviously I would want to see what they looked at in the garage. Did they look at the garage door to see if it was locked? Did they, things like that, things that might not occur to us immediately might be things that they would be looking at.
Yeah. The reason the garage stuck with me is there's just people in the neighborhood. There's this feeling that the person who did this could be close. Could be close by, might not be someone from far away. And even with some of the cell phone, and we don't know this for sure, but it doesn't seem like they've been able to find someone's cell phone that was there that didn't belong at this point, based on them not having any suspects, which would again lead you to believe like maybe it is someone who is normally in the area and their cell phone is normally in the area. So when she said the garage thing, it just made me wonder that early on, were they already considering whether the person who did this could be someone very, very close by?
Oh, I think that's certainly, you're not going to go do interviews in all these houses and not answer the first question, could these people possibly be suspects? So they might have had a car description at that point that they wanted to look at. They had obviously already been outside the property. So maybe they wanted to look at that. Maybe there was golf carts, in some of those communities, people drive golf carts around. Maybe they were looking at electrical junction boxes. There's so many things they could be asking about, but one of the things that you want to answer pretty quickly is whether the person could have been involved. They say, here, we answered all the questions. And you find out later, yeah, there was blood on the floor, but those weren't one of the questions. So the agents will want to take a good look at the house just to make sure that it's not an obvious suspect.
And one of the neighbors was telling me they were actually, the agents were actually asking them about other neighbors. Was this person a good person? What do you know about this person? So I guess it would make sense that they would be using the neighbors that way.
Yeah, absolutely they would, because, one of the things you're doing is you're trying to get a feel of the entire neighborhood, and the neighbors generally know other neighbors and say, oh, that person's sketchy over there. You don't even talk to them. They're just, I think one of them did time in the pen for kidnapping or something. You want that.
By the way, remember to like the video, Likes are free. Leave your DNA on that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Super Chat's great way to support the channel and get questions answered. Super Stickers, great way to support the channel. Channel memberships, that gives you access to our members-only live streams where we shoot the shit and talk about whatever comes up. And thank you very much to everyone who's been supporting the channel so far.
Kind of information. And so in a way, they're not only looking at this house, but they're looking for background information. They're essentially doing a background investigation on people in the neighborhood to find out if they are even potential suspects.
What do you think it means that we haven't heard much from the FBI at all, or from the sheriff's office, in terms of like trying to keep this in the news, trying to keep this relevant? You know, when there's other missing people, there might be another press conference. And we just want to remind everybody. We want to show you the picture again. We want to just get the word out again. You know, we haven't seen that happen here.
No, and you know, honestly, Brian, I think sometimes I know it's true of agents. They don't want it in the press. I mean, it's so much easier and so much less work to investigate a case that nobody's really looking at from the outside. A lot of work is a lot of case time is spent managing press, managing public questions and things like that. And then you get tens of thousands of leads pouring in, 99% of which are going to be, by definition, useless. And so I think they're seeing this as kind of a breather where they can really focus on the case and not have to do pressers every day.
And they can do more investigating without as much attention, you think?
Oh yeah. Listen, whenever your case hits the press, hits the media, hits anything, you roll your eyes and say, oh gosh, now I got to deal with that. And you know, I'm not decrying the people's right to know. I'm just saying that the fact is just stark, that it's easier to work a case when nobody's asking for updates every day, and headquarters isn't second guessing every decision you make because they are feeling political pressure.
How closely do you think the person who's responsible for this is watching the coverage, is watching all of this?
Oh, I think.
Oh, what did I say about this before? I said I literally meant that the person who's done this, they could be watching this very live stream. Look to your right or left and you might see this person in the live stream. Or maybe they're watching Ashleigh Banfield, Brian Netton, Nancy Grace, Joe Pags, Long Crime Network, JLR, whoever, right? They might be in there. Would not surprise me one bit.
They're voracious. Because that's how they're finding out about the case. And that's worked a little bit in their favor because they know what the FBI is looking at. They know what the sheriff's department is looking at. And so it helps them anticipate law enforcement's moves. So I think they'd be foolish not to be the number one taker of this information. They're probably just living off of it.
Is that typical in cases you've covered before? Have you been able to go back and find out, like, oh my gosh, they were watching everything? That just always creeps me out to think about, you know?
Yeah, well, no, and really, I think when you go on the media like this, and you're known for covering this case pretty extensively, I would be surprised if the persons who did it haven't been watching your podcasts. When I talk to you, I assume that the person who has done this might be listening. And so I think this is, something you have to just accept, that they will be a huge consumer of media. And, that's one of the bittersweet things about freedom of speech and freedom of the press, which I would die for, is that nothing is free, nothing is cost free. And the cost for freedom of speech and freedom of press is that some people might use it for nefarious purposes.
Do you think the media has been used effectively from the beginning? I mean, I mentioned that they, haven't been doing press conferences lately, but do you think they did a good job?
No. I mean, the short answer is no, they didn't do a good job. Did they do an effective job? Maybe so. And, the hot wash on that isn't going to occur until we eventually find out who did this. Then there'll be information that will allow the sheriffs and the FBI to determine what they could have done better, what they did absolutely wrong, what they will do better in the future, things like this. But right now, we don't have the end data to tell us what was good and what was bad. I will tell you what didn't work well is confusing messages back and forth, saying some people saying one thing, some people saying another. I mean, different agencies. And anytime you have one agency, a local agency or a federal agency at war with the other, with their counterparts, you've already tied one arm behind your back. It's just that simple. And so I think the worst thing that happened in this case was the reported. I haven't met the people, I haven't talked to them, but I've heard a lot of reporting that the sheriff did not have any love for the FBI and did not view them as legitimate partners in this case. And I have read that and heard that there were attempts by him not to cooperate in so much as he didn't want the FBI getting credit for what was done. And so it's possible that no credit will ever be there to get because one agency was afraid of another agency getting that credit. I am not going to tell you that if I was an FBI agent and the sheriff was stiff-arming me on information, that I might not have it in my heart to retaliate on that. So when you have kind of a battle between the two investigative agencies, like I say, you're going into it with one arm behind your back.
As always, I really appreciate Steve for taking the time to talk with me. He's been an amazing resource. He had an amazing career in the FBI, and appreciate you guys for following along. One thing, it's so sunny. I mean, it goes without saying, but it's just, Mo and I were talking about it. It's so, like, the sun is so intense in Arizona. It feels like you can just never escape the sun. I'm from Florida, but it's just, I don't know, it has a different vibe here. Maybe because there's just not as many trees, but it feels like you're always in the sun. Like, it's always just coming in through the window everywhere you are. But I'll keep you guys posted if there's any developments. Got something really interesting cooking for you guys tomorrow. And again, I appreciate you guys for following along and subscribing, and I'll talk to you guys later.
So some people are asking, is it possible Nancy had a heart attack because of all the commotion? And I'd say it's possible, but there was also definitely violence, and there was the blood, and the coughing of blood is what it looks like. So even if it was a heart attack, there was also violence too, is what I would say.
Enton and former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer join right now.
Ah, what a team here, eh? I've never seen Brian Netton and Jennifer Coffindaffer on the same screen. Have you? I have not. Only if it wasn't disconnected, Laura, and only if it's the kind that actually reported to a hospital. Bella would know for sure, but Bella's not here.
Brian, I mean, you've been working it. You've been doing excellent work, but you can't report on what isn't known. Yeah.
Yes, so Brian can't report on what isn't known. Yes, but also remember to like the video, Likes are for my spirit animal, Shadow the Night Owl. Likes are tax-free. Leave your DNA on that like button. Considering how many people were in the live chat today, there's no excuse to not get to around 1,000 today. Seriously. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Next week, my friend Dr. Salerno, he's going to come in here. I'm going to ask him if he wants to, that is. I'm scheduled to speak to him, so that could be a cool thing.
And you're right. I mean, there's been a lot of dead ends, Chris. The glove that was found, we now found out that it's not linked to the case. The DNA actually traced back to a restaurant worker in the area who the sheriff says has absolutely nothing to do with the case. Today, though, I mean, there was action. We see the FBI out here. There's a task force that's been formed since last time I talked to you, Chris, that consists of 4 detectives from the sheriff's office, a sergeant, and then all the FBI agents. So they've got a special task force now. All they do is Nancy Guthrie. And they were out in the neighborhood again today, knocking on doors. They went to several houses right near Nancy's, and then they were in another part of the neighborhood. We're not sure why. Neighbors told me that they seemed very, very focused, that they didn't share new information, but they seemed more focused than last time they were here, Chris.
Jen, did we expect too much? Did we treat this like a missing persons case where we expect that flush of activity within 24, 48 hours where somebody saw something on a camera and there's a chase and you try to get to them before something bad happens? Is this something else?
I don't think we expected too much. Look, Nancy Guthrie's life was in peril from the beginning, and you have about 48 hours.
Oh, my goodness. Brian's cheating on Maureen with Jen.
To make that investigation quickly solved. And unfortunately, that is not what has happened here. And now when I'm seeing all of this re-canvassing, it makes me concerned. We know it's already been canvassed twice, this neighborhood. It shows me that perhaps this task force doesn't think that the information was adequately gained and they have to redo it.
I've had great experience with the Cajun Navy. I was surprised to hear that they wanted to be part of this search. A lot of people laugh it off.
Bella, I am magic after all. And maybe I'm like Lord Vader. I sensed Bella, the surgical nurse, was coming in the chat as a question about pacemaker was asked. How about that?
You do not.
No, I don't at all. I actually think they need to be doing desert searches, the searches that are very close to, in proximity to the house. I don't think anybody's been searching there. And that is the perfect thing to do grid searches there in particular quadrants where everybody knows who searched and when. That's what needs to happen.
And again, what did Jen just say? They need to be doing grid searches. That's exactly what the Cajun Army or Cajun Navy or whatever they're called, that's what they wanted to do. But we haven't heard anything about them since last week. But I would say, why not let them out there? Because what do you guys have to show for yourself? Local law enforcement or 4 detectives and sergeant that's with the FBI now? Are you any closer? Why not let the Cajun, is it Cajun Army or Cajun Navy? I can't remember. I think it's the Cajun Navy. But why not let them search?
With these volunteer search services.
Brian, what are your main avenues of reporting right now?
Well, you brought up the Cajun Navy. I went through, they submitted a 42-page, really detailed operational plan, Chris. I mean, they've got 25 dogs that they could bring, aerial assets.
Cajun Navy.
And
not Cajun chicken.
Just want to search the desert, and they just want the sheriff's blessing. But so far, he's basically ignored their request to search. Yeah, so she says that she wants to return to the show, Jesse, in terms of when she will actually return. She didn't say today. She wasn't on camera, obviously, but she did visit the Today Show to see her coworkers, her friends, people who she says are like family. You can see these photos. They were really emotional. She was hugging different, coworkers who she's worked with for years. You remember she was here at the house just a couple of days ago. She's been in Arizona for more than a month now, and now she's finally back in New York City.
Yeah, incredibly difficult for her. Day 33. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Day 33. There's no sign from Nancy. Everything you're hearing from sources close to the investigation, being on the ground, I mentioned this idea of 4 detectives, a sergeant, have now joined this FBI task force in Tucson. Anything you can tell us about whether or not authorities are still treating this as a rescue operation, as a kidnapping situation? They believe Nancy's still alive, or is this shifting to a recovery mission? I mean, do you have any insight into where this investigation is right now?
Great question there by Jesse Weber. But do you think it's I mean, let's face it, this is day 40. And I was saying by day 2 weeks to 20 days that the chances that she's alive is low then, let alone now. I mean, at this point, the Guthrie family is probably going through the stages of grief, because we asked this before, but at what point do you have to just act as if they're gone? And you know what it made me think of? Castaway. So in the movie Castaway, Tom Hanks's character goes down in the plane crash, and then he survives on the island, but he's gone 4 years. And when he comes back, his wife remarries, or at least has a new boyfriend. And she tells him, yeah, we had a funeral for you and everything. How long did they wait to have that funeral? I don't know. But that's kind of what it made me think of when it's disappearance. When it's a disappearance, how long do you wait? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but just something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, but the sense is this is not a rescue operation anymore. I mean, there's not like an active search for Nancy. There's no helicopters in the air. It doesn't feel like it has the urgency it did in the very beginning in terms of, people feeling like she could be alive. I mean, hopefully she is. It's certainly a possibility, but that's not really the sense in the way that it was in the beginning. Today, we have some video of this actually you're looking at today. I mean, it's active. There's still a lot going on. Today, the FBI agents, part of this task force, were on the ground in the neighborhood again, talking to neighbors, knocking on doors. We were trying to figure out why certain neighbors and not others. They were in one part of the neighborhood, then they came right by Nancy's house. I talked to one neighbor who spoke with the FBI, who said they seem a lot more focused now, that they were asking a lot of similar questions that they have in the past, but they seem to be focusing more, and he didn't want to elaborate more than that. But like I said, I mean, some people are worried it's a cold case. I mean, they're still out pounding the pavement, Jesse.
And with that in mind, circle back to what we talked about on last night's show. You broke this news about the Cajun Navy, right? So the Cajun Navy sent apparently a 41-page search plan to the sheriff's office. Said, hey, listen, you guys will be in charge. You spearhead it, but we'll help. K9s, drones. This is a volunteer group that has assisted in search and rescue operations in the past. They've helped with criminal investigations. Has the sheriff's office still not responded to them? Because again, I mean, we've talked about the idea that maybe they don't want anyone interfering with an investigation, but have they not taken them off on the offer or even responded?
Yeah, for what we know, still no response. It doesn't seem like that plan is really going to pan out because the sheriff's office doesn't seem interested. I've heard kind of both sides of it. Obviously, what's the harm in having more people out searching? And you could have them search the far desert if you wanted to, not even this area. Others have told me, though, look, it's a controlled investigation right now. It seems like the FBI is taking more control than they had because this task force is based out of the FBI office, and they may just not want any outsiders involved right now.
And look, from an investigative point of view, I can understand that. But, everybody's just trying to find some answers right here, which is it brings me back to what the sheriff said earlier in the week, that investigators may be closer to identifying a suspect. Have you learned more information about what leads the sheriff to believe that? We've talked about before this Ring camera video of a car about 2.5 miles away from Nancy's home at around 2 a.m. We've talked about maybe genetic genealogy on some forensic material that maybe have helped. Do we know anything more about why the sheriff might have said that?
So, there's definitely things happening behind the scenes. The specifics, we don't know. There have been some rumblings, like could they have a vehicle description that they're just not sharing? We don't know. So the sheriff has been tight-lipped about a lot. I mean, every time we've heard from him, he's been optimistic that they will solve the case. In terms of what he knows right now, it's hard to say, Jesse.
I hope he's right. Brian Entin, thank you so much. And thank you for continuing to stay on top of the story. Everybody really appreciates it.
For more on all that, let's go live to Brian Entin in Tucson, Arizona. He's been covering this case from the very start. What are you learning about?
So this is a super video from News Nation. Make sure you support News Nation. They are also kind to me on this channel. Support their work, even if you don't like Chris Cuomo. But support News Nation because that's where Brian Entin works. That's where Ashleigh Banfield used to work. And that's where Jesse Weber works.
This brand new canvassing yet again of this neighborhood.
Yeah, we saw them out here today, Elizabeth. They not only went to Nancy Guthrie's neighbors on both sides, but to other parts of the neighborhood. It seemed like they knew which houses they
D, I almost had a heart attack. Only 660 likes and 4,000 live stream viewers? That's atrocious. I'm in likes withdrawal. Likes are free, folks. They are for Shadow the Night Owl, the spirit animal of the channel, and for the flock of black sheep. Come say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat.
wanted to go to. There were some a couple of blocks away where they were talking to people. It was a mix of FBI agents and also Pima County sheriff's detectives, but they're now all on one task force, which is what I told you yesterday. They've combined it into one very focused task force, which I'm told is a good thing. What's interesting is I talked to some of the neighbors who had the FBI agents visit their homes, and they said there wasn't particularly anything new that they were asking them, but they said that they seemed more focused. They used that word focus, that they were focusing in on some of the same elements that they had asked them about before. Whether that means there are new leads coming in behind the scenes or if they are just doing follow-up, we don't know. But I can tell you, according to the FBI, the number of tips coming in have really started to slow, Elizabeth, since that $1 million reward was first announced. Elizabeth.
Oh, wow. All right. Okay. Brian Entin, live from Tucson. Thank you. For more, let's go to Jeffrey Halstead, retired Fort Worth police chief and former commander with the Phoenix Police Department. Jeff, what do you make of the fact that this task force of FBI agents and sheriff's deputies are now together going back again door to door asking more questions? What could people possibly know that they haven't already told them?
This is very typical because when this investigation passes about a 30-day mark, you're going to see a concentric focus on going back and reestablishing contact with people that were probably early interviewees. And what they're doing is they're doing a confirmation or a closure of these contacts, confirming what they told investigators before, and then either making sure the lead is still strong or closing this out. So the
Now, this guy here, I've never seen this guy before. I don't know who he is.
task force can then centralize on their strongest opportunities for case development. It's very typical and it's very normal for this, but you got to have the right people doing this. And I think now is the right time. So I think they're doing the right things here.
You know, a lot of people had a lot of optimism when Savannah Guthrie announced on Instagram that they were posting a $1 million reward for information. They thought, okay, this will finally shake the tree. Somebody who knows something will not be able to pass that up. And yet do we not yet have.
And again, I don't think it's that simple. I do think if the reward was going to work, it would have worked already. But here's the other piece. If the person that did this is connected to the mafia, anywhere else of hired crime, it is now very, very, very dangerous to call that person out. It's very dangerous to rat that person out. Easily people get killed for doing that. So when Ashleigh Banfield the other night was making her plea, $1 million is so much money. If you're with this guy, you're a loser. It's like, well, Ashleigh Banfield. One, you can be putting their life in danger, right? That's how it can be. You can be putting their life in danger for them to rat this person out. Seriously.
Apparently, I don't know. There could be something going on behind the scenes, but there hasn't been an arrest. And now we're hearing from Brian Entin that the numbers of tips is dropping.
Oh, I was in that group, when the elevation went to a level that I thought was absolutely instrumental in getting some criminal syndicate style communications. Someone that knew something that's within an element of crime is going to reveal that. I was in that group thinking that was going to hold and actually bring forward some stronger leads. With that said, you got to also remember the complexity in that first 2, 3, 4 day, and then no communication whatsoever to a lot of our media partners, a lot of the public, just some more enticing types of.
So even so Bella says that's why you call the anonymous number. Sure. But here's the thing. You are dreaming if you think there's no crooked people on the payroll in law enforcement. Look at movies like The Departed. The mob has people on the inside. And people could say, oh, it's just a movie. It's like, well, how many times do you see law enforcement officials go down and get in trouble? It happens. So they can get a leak. There can be a leak even in anonymous chat, anonymous call. There can still be a leak. So I wouldn't be so sure is what I'm saying.
Development in this case,
Right.
that becomes very, very frustrating on many aspects of the investigation.
Well, let's talk about the aspects of the investigation. I want to bring in Bob Krieger, a former Pima County Sheriff's Lieutenant who spent nearly 30 years at the department. Bob, you've been a longtime critic of Sheriff Chris Nanos, and you think he botched this investigation. How?
I don't think he necessarily botched the investigation. I think he botched the word of the investigation coming out to the public. He's got very little to do with the actual investigating what the detectives are doing on the ground. But I think his messaging could have been a whole lot better from day one. There's reasons that he put stuff out and things like that. But as far as the investigation goes, I'm still very confident that the detectives and the agents from the FBI are doing a good job at that level.
Why haven't we had, Bob, any kind of news conference? Why, part of what you want to do in cases like this that you fear are growing cold is to keep it hot, get out there in front of a microphone and tell the public you need this or that. We've had Savannah Guthrie trying to do her best to keep the public interest focused on finding her mother, but we haven't heard the sheriff give a news conference in weeks.
I mean, the damage that the sheriff did was opening up the crime scene too soon, not turning over the case to the FBI. And then I imagine the micromanaging. If he's anything like the way former Under Sheriff Rick Castiger was saying to Brian Etten, that micromanaging sucks. Him having his ego run the show, that sucks too. So the fact that those detectives and the one sergeant are with the FBI's task force instead of being right underneath Sheriff Nanos, that probably helps the case.
Well, I think based on those early news conferences, the way they went for him, he probably saw the writing on the wall. Now, that doesn't mean that other folks in the agency couldn't have done that, or partners within the FBI. And hopefully there are reasons for that the investigators behind the scene, they have been making those decisions. That being said, you hit it. It's been a long time, and there's a lot of folks out there who are probably waiting and who may have some bits of information that they haven't put together yet because they haven't heard things coming from the top. And if they hear those things, it'll light a fire for them. Like, hey, I need to call this in now. So the reasons for it are manifold. They didn't start off well. Someone probably told him to stop talking, quite honestly, and took that literally. So I do think that more should be put out in press conference format, not individual news or individual interview format.
Yeah, Jeffrey, you have a long experience in leading local police departments in both Texas and in Phoenix, Arizona. How would you have handled this? Would you have, established a process where there's a regular, even if you've got nothing new, where you come out in front of the microphones every day, every 3 days, at least once a week, to just update the public on what's happening and to keep the interest going, because that's what you're going to need to crack this case.
Yeah, you're right. I agree, with my peer that's on our call with us today. So communication is the foundation of leadership excellence, period. So if you're not communicating.
That's a great quote. Communication is the foundation of, what did he say? Of leadership excellence. Communication is the foundation of leadership excellence, which is true. And Sheriff Nanos, he said so many conflicting things. What's an example of that? Oh, there were signs of forced entry back on February 3rd. A couple weeks later, oh, I can't confirm or deny if there was forced entry. What? A big part of it is just being consistent and not contradicting yourself. If you don't want to share certain things, don't share certain things. Don't share too much and then have to walk it back as if it didn't happen. That is not good leadership.
You're not showing a strong leadership presence. With that said, after I retired, I spent years developing literally like a virtual press conference here with Genesis Evertel. Every reporter could be in an encrypted chat room instantaneously getting updates. He has a team of PIOs, and he can utilize them to get information out, updates out, because it keeps the story fresh. And that's absolutely critical.
Bob, what do you make of the fact that we now have the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's deputies going together as they go door to door? That this is Brian Anton reported on this actually last night, but today he actually saw this at work. This newly formed task force. Is this a normal thing for there to be a newly formed task force a month later after the crime?
Well, the task force as it's put together now, it's my understanding it's a handful of detectives working out of the FBI building with FBI agents. Who's running it, who's leading it, that I'm not sure of. But in cases like this, it's not unheard of. I'm certain as I can be that from day one, again, that the investigators on the ground, the men and women, they were working well together.
Yeah.
There might have been some bumps in the road at the top. So putting a task force together at this point is just kind of formalizing what they've been doing for the past, over a month. It's putting a name to it, and now they're focused on that. And because life has to get back to normal, both with the FBI and with the Sheriff's Department, as far as investigations go and things like that. And this is the start of that.
Well, and life will never be back to normal for the Guthrie family, sadly. Jeffrey, 10 seconds. Are they ever going to have any answers, do you think? Will we know?
I don't think they're going to have the answers that they've been hoping for and praying for. And with that said, we all need to be very, very respectful that they're going through a extremely unthinkable, challenging time right now.
All right. Thanks so much, Jeffrey Krieger, Jeffrey Halstead, Bob Krieger, Jeffrey Halstead. Thanks. Savannah Guthrie returned to New York City today for an emotional reunion with her NBC family. It was the Today Show host's first trip back to the set since her mother.
And again, I'd seen this, the way people were talking about this, they acted like Savannah was actually going back to work, which she didn't. She just met with coworkers, but she did say she would be returning to work. She just didn't say when.
Disappeared more than a month ago. TMZ captured video of hugs and tears that played out behind the scenes. Fellow Today Show anchor Jenna Bush Hager became choked up when she later talked about Guthrie's visit on air.
Savannah has come back to her home here at 30 Rock and Studio 1A. We got to see her this morning, and in her perfect way, she talked to all of us, hugged every single person in this room. She has the intention to return to the show, even though it feels like the hardest thing to do.
Savannah Guthrie has been in Tucson with her brother and sister as the anguished search for her missing mother now hits day 33. The family's $1 million reward has helped generate more than 40,000 tips, an astronomical number that still hasn't led to any breaks in the case. There were, however, new signs of activity today. FBI agents were seen going door to door, canvassing the neighborhood in the Catalina foothills where the 84-year-old lived. So does that mean there are new questions to ask, or does it mean that the FBI wasn't satisfied with the answers that Pima County Sheriff's Department got when it knocked on those same doors weeks ago? For more on all that, let's go live to Brian Anton in Tucson, Arizona. He's been covering this case from the very start. What are you learning about this brand new canvassing yet again of this neighborhood?
Yeah, we saw them out here today, Elizabeth. They not only went to Nancy Guthrie's neighbors on both sides, but to other parts of the neighborhood. It seemed like they knew which houses they wanted to go to. There were some a couple of blocks away where they were talking to people. It was a mix of FBI agents and also Pima County Sheriff's detectives, but they're now all on one task force, which is what I told you yesterday. They've combined it into one very focused task force, which I'm told is a good thing. What's interesting is I talked to some of the neighbors who had the FBI agents visit their homes, and they said there wasn't particularly anything new that they were asking them, but they said that they seemed more focused. They used that word focus, that they were focusing in on some of the same elements that they had asked them about before, whether that means there are new leads coming in behind the scenes or if they are just doing follow-up.
Did you hear that? So Brian said, it looks like the FBI and the team looks more focused and revigorated. What do you think that means? Did they just get a fresh set of eyeballs? Did they just get a break? Is it because it seems like there's less media pressure on it now, so they can breathe a little bit? What do you think it is? Or do you think they got new leads? This is an open-ended question, chat. So what do you think?
We don't know, but I can tell you, according to the FBI, the number of tips coming in have really started to slow, Elizabeth, since that $1 million reward was first announced.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone. And
Goodbye, Christopher. Goodbye, Christopher Robin.
President-elect Obama is back in Chicago now.
Back in 2008, my first year working for NBC News, I not only looked different, I sounded different too.
It's always an adventure at the Guthrie household.
Over the years, I noticed as my voice got deeper.
Parents all around the world are closely watching Australia this morning.
And scratchier.
Now a new book is out and it's for kids.
But what I thought was just normal wear and tear and aging, over time got much more noticeable.
Vocal cord surgery. I didn't know Savannah Guthrie did this, did you?
And this past year, much worse.
Hi there, good Wednesday morning.
Sometimes it was hard to get through a sentence.
Well, my voice sounds so bad, I sound like Toad from Mario Brothers.
No longer able to just ignore it, I went to see Dr. Peek Wu, one of the country's leading voice specialists.
What I saw was a hemorrhagic polyp on one side and vocal nodule on the other side.
In other words, a ruptured blood vessel on one vocal cord and a callus from overuse on.
I don't know why Jen Koffendover put this on her channel. Not really necessary.
True crimers, welcome to Break the Case. I'm your host. I'm Jen Koffendaffer. Thanks for being here this morning. We are going to pick up where we left off with the Nancy Guthrie case, specifically trying to dispel some of this ridiculous information that is out there being presented as facts when either it's complete supposition and it's not couched that way. Rather,
this is important. I think trying to figure out fact from fiction here, this is an important thing.
It's couched as facts, and it's specifically, of course, information that is not only pointing the finger at, that's one thing, but this is literally indicting Tommaso Cioni and Annie Guthrie for murdering Nancy Guthrie. It's really unbelievable, but it's still out there and it still keeps going. And there's all sorts of other rumors. We had to do this in the Brian Koberger case. That was before I had a podcast or anything, but
I don't know why people don't like Jen. I mean, I haven't really had a problem with her. Some people cite other things that she's done, but in terms of this case, I haven't had a problem with her.
I literally would just each morning just get up and say, rumor, lie, untrue, this is why, these are the facts. So we're seeing a lot of that again, and definitely want to get that dispelled. But first of all, I want to, before we get into all of that, make a huge announcement. So for those of you who are courties, I think Julie always liked to say courties, coffee, and court was kind of her saying. I talked to her or communicated with her. We've been texting last night, and we're going to talk more in short plans this morning. But She is going to be joining me for 1 hour. And I don't know whether it's going to be the 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock hour. I'm going to talk with her all about that, or maybe she'll want 9, but whatever she wants, we'll make it happen in the mornings, 1 morning a week. And we're going to call it Crime and Coffee with Julie and Jen. So I'm really excited about this. I think it'll be great. I actually had talked to her way before this turnover at Court TV came.
Crime and Coffee with Julie and Jen. You know what that reminds me of? Murder Mystery Makeup with What's-Her-Face.
Again, for those who don't know, Julie Grant, who hosted the morning show, who I think many just loved her spirit. She would get up and she'd say, you know, basically, welcome in for, what did she say? Coffee in court. It was such a breath of fresh air. I think she just brought not only a vibrance and a beauty. Obviously, she's very intelligent. She's an attorney. And just her whole approach to the cases made it feel genuine and familiar is the best way. And we're going to keep that tradition. It's going to be familiar. We're probably not going to be all dressed up necessarily, but we're going to bring it to you and talk about the whole palette of cases that are kind of going on that week. For instance, I feel terrible that I have not, and let me see if I can get a picture up here. Let me just get a picture up here. It'll just take me a second. I have not talked about Laken Snelling on the program because I've been so busy with other, with talking about the Nancy Guthrie case. But even as Nancy Guthrie has been the focus, I'm never going to let go with the follow-ups and the updates on all the cases that we've been following over the last couple of years. And one of those cases is Laken Snelling. I have so many pictures of her. Let me just grab one here. Looking through my library and it's not coming up. Got all my others kind of downloaded and saved. She's a beautiful young lady. She was a cheerleader at Kentucky, a stunt person. Anyway, here we go. Let me just bring up this one. She was pregnant, gave birth to a child in her room, 2 roommates. I think she shared this home with 2 roommates, I believe. This was her boyfriend. You can tell there, and I have lots of pictures when she was stunting, when she had on. It was very obvious she was pregnant. This was not a girl that was chubby and,
But remember, Bodacious, they're not going to get anywhere with their lawsuits. It's just not going to work. Mark Garagos from TMZ, he mentioned it. They don't have a case.
All right. Let's get back into it. I think I was only on day 3. No, I actually.
By the way, chat, we're coming down the home stretch to 1,000 likes here. I know we can do it. Likes are free. Leave your DNA on that like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already.
Made it, it looks like, to day 4. And this was what we're talking about. Of course, Nancy Guthrie was abducted on the 1st of February. I believe we are on, oh my gosh, are we on day?
Kat, are you saying she should eat some makeup so she can be pretty on the inside too?
Day 39. Anyway, it's terrible. She hasn't been found. And rumors are swirling. The FBI hasn't come out to talk about anything. And the sheriff has actually talked a lot. You kind of have to look for it because, the other mainstream media channels, a lot of channels are not showing it. It's not being discussed a lot. But I tell you, when I see something, I bring it up and talk about it. And one of those things, and I reposted it again on Twitter, is regarding these photos. So before we get into our main focus here, this photo, right? Notice how dark it is. Notice no backpack. Notice no holster. Notice different shoes versus, I think I have one here. Yeah, versus porch guy the night of the abduction, or the early morning hours, I should say, of the abduction. So again, the source reporting on this is that these are 2 different days. I did want to bring up that when I looked at this particular video compared to...
And never forget, Maureen calls him the front porch phallic bandit.
Some of the others, of course, this one's totally dark, but this one wasn't near as dark as some of the others we had seen. And I'm still concerned that this could be about lighting. But nevertheless, Sheriff Nanos specifically said, I think this is really important. He specifically said, there's no timestamp. He said, maybe there was one at one time, but there isn't one now. For those wondering, and again, I just posted it again this morning. Now, this is the problem. Chief Nanos has lost a lot of confidence, right? When he says something, I don't think people are taking it. They're taking it with a grain of salt, as the saying goes. And he's had so many statements that he's made that either he has floundered on, or he's circled back about, or that has just been left out there. Like when he said that officers first reported on Saturday night. He's just made a lot of misstatements. And so I think people, have lost confidence in what he has to say. This is what I have to say about that. No one else knows what is going on. Anyone who is saying that this is a different day are speculating. Yes, there's source reporting. We don't even know who this.
So when I say Maureen, I'm referring to former FBI agent Maureen O'Connell. She is part of the A team with Brian Netton. She's a regular guest on his show. You will occasionally see her on Megyn Kelly's show as well. But I trust her, and I trust Brian Netton. And there's another guy, I forget his name now. I wrote it down, but I can't remember it. I think he kind of sounds British, but there was a guy we were listening to. I think he's really good too. It's not Jim Clemente, and I don't think it's James Fitzgerald. I think it's someone else.
Source is. We know that it went to ABC, NBC, CBS, and CNN. And then we know, even though it wasn't mentioned, News Nation also reported it.
Just Chaos, thank you for gifting a membership there. Someone will definitely appreciate that. And the best way to get a gifted membership is just by participating in the channel. YouTube gives them out that way.
And then, that these are 2 different days, and it could be. Look, I had Dale Lundgren on, who I just have so much respect for, because he was a homicide detective 10 years and a robbery/kidnapping, because in Dallas, the robbery squad handled kidnappings and burglaries for 20 years. I mean, this guy has seen almost everything, although he said an 84-year-old being abducted was quite unusual for him. Thank you so much for becoming a member. It means the world. I'm actually going to announce at the end a very cool raffle we're going to do just amongst members. I've got all these great ideas for members, and now I have a bigger staff. We're getting more things off the ground, and that's all because of you. I think I was making a grand total, do not laugh at this, because my husband was, $16 an episode. He's like, oh my gosh, because I actually work and make pretty good money at what I actually do. And then, of course, as a contributor for News Nation. But this is just so important, I think, as far as advocacy and being able to hopefully bring the attention to these crimes in just the lens of a FBI agent. How do we sort of see cases? So I love this, and I love the audience and everything. And in the past, really little while, in the past month, we've really grown, and that's because of you all. It's directly related to each of you who come on, who support the channel, and I really can't thank you enough. So anyway, there are, of course, rumors, speculation derived from a source. And again, we have no idea who these sources are. And I hate to put down these sources because it's not about the reporters. I believe the reporters get information. Actually, what I think this might have come from is there's been a guy that was a former, I think, SWAT member of Pima County, right? Now, remember, just think of how many SWAT call outs and how busy a Pima County SWAT team member may be. Maybe not that busy, but still trained and regarded highly to be able to be in a position like that. I think he's provided a lot of information that maybe, you know, he knows from somebody in the Pima County Sheriff's Office, and that's possibly what's getting sort of leaked secondhand in some of these instances. I don't know. But that's the one nexus that I can sort of see before my own eyes that could possibly be, you know, providing information. We don't know. But nevertheless, I think it makes some sense. These are different days based on the attire and the darkness, also based on, but also based on this, I do think it's possible that it could be an accomplice. And I do think it possibly could be, well, I did think it could be bad guy, and then he gets kitted up afterwards. And in other words, he goes, he takes a look, and then he throws on his back pocket his holster. But I'm not as convinced of that now because that shirt seems different to me, and so do the shoes. But nevertheless, my point is, you know who does know whether there's timestamps or not? You know who does know that is the sheriff. And he has unequivocally said there are no timestamps. There might have been in the past, but there aren't any. In other words, when they did this retrieval, this wasn't normal. This was where they had to go back and sort of peel away the levels of like an onion of.
It's insane though. The fact that you need the subscription anyway to even get the footage at all. That's kind of weird. But they were able to get the footage, and then there's footage that doesn't have timestamps. And then there's other Nest cams where they couldn't even get the footage. So first of all, you have a Nest cam, Ring cam, make sure you have a subscription for your loved ones and for yourself. But I don't know, it just seems weird to me in this day and age. It is that difficult to get the footage. Considering all of the technology we have, that seems weird.
Time and, you know, probably millions, I don't even know, of recordings that were recorded that Google and the Bureau working together were able to come up with. All these pictures that I show you are directly from what Kash Patel released. So my question is, are we trying to say that either there were images that came up, but Google, they chose the ones without the timestamp? Or are we trying to say that the FBI got rid of the timestamp? Because I can tell you that based on what was said, there was no time to go back to Quantico and to do all that. In other words, as I've said, I don't think we're seeing the images that law enforcement is working with. I think the images they're working with are much.
And by the way, we're coming down the home stretch to 1,000 likes. I know we're going to do it. Manifest. Manifestation plus action equals results. Don't forget the action steps. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The subscribe button only requires 1 rep. The like button requires a rep every time you're here, preferably.
Clearer and well-defined. As I said, I've had cases where I've sent in a license plate and it was darkly lit and I can't see it, I can't make anything out, and they come back and work their magic, and now I can read a license tag. So that's the magic. I mean, are they 100% magic? No, but they really are at the, you know, precipice, the best of the best when it comes to in, you know, making video and still photography come to light. So I believe they're working with different images than we see here. And when you talk about that, that begs the question, was the timestamp on or off? And I'm only going with the strong statement that the sheriff made combined with the images that Kash Patel put out that did not have these timestamps, combined with the fact that these weren't retrieved in a normal sense. These weren't retrieved from the cloud or from some a recording that was kept on a SIM card. No, it was extracted in a much more complicated way. And it makes me wonder, and it makes me believe that perhaps there are no timestamps. So something for you all to consider. So if it's true that there are no timestamps, and I do believe the Bureau and officers have so much more information than we know, it really is a guess based on source information that may or may not be, and it may be accurate, but it's a guess. Whereas I believe, at least I know where it's coming from when the sheriff opens his mouth. I know it's coming from him, and I know he's in the know. So take that for what you will. I want to get back to the main crux, and that is there's this particular creator. I didn't look today, but yesterday I looked. It was over 700,000 views, and his entire show is all about how Tommaso, with his drummer, who I'm not even going to say his name and get it out there any longer. I did a whole piece on him. The New York Times did a piece on him, the drummer meaning. And yes, he has a criminal history when he was drunk, and he stole a watch and got pulled over for a DUI. I think he got a year, I think, for, the theft and the burglary/robbery situation that happened 15 to 20 years ago. I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying, let's understand it. It's not like he went into a house, broke open the doors, went in and did some violent crime. He did a property crime. And the other thing is, this drummer has never been arrested. It was adjudicated, I should say. He was arrested.
It sounds like Jen's talking about that AI video that we went over, that video that had 700 and something thousand views. And it was talking over about Tommaso and the guys whose initials are DE. Brian Netton mentioned this guy too. But that video, lots of speculation in that video.
Was adjudicated, and guess what? He would have had his cheeks swabbed for those incidents, for both of them, and it would have been in CODIS. So that glove, at least that was found on the side of the road, which again, we really don't know whether that glove is connected or not. It's always been a wing and a prayer, something that they needed to call in. They've got 16 gloves. There's one, though, that they say meets the general view and standards of the glove that was used by the perpetrator. I'll put that glove picture up there. So they're looking at that. It's out for genetic genealogy. I know there was a report back that there was a glove that was found to be a restaurant workers. Again, there's 16 of them out there. I think we're going to see all sorts of different workers that were out there. But I do not believe it's that glove that was found a mile and a half away. And I say that because, again, Sheriff Nanos says that. He kind of dials down in on that. So I think this glove may still be out for genetic genealogy. That's my understanding is. Let's see. I want to take this question from Dawn. Thank you so much.
So Babs, can you tell us a little bit about that? How she backpedaled on the Sebastian Rogers case? I'll be curious because I don't know.
Much. Nancy Grace had a guest about tracking her hearing aids for this. Did you hear about her? Have you heard about that? Tracking hearing aids. What an interesting thought. Very interesting. You know what? Let me see if I can get a guest on about that. Let me see if I can get a guest on about that. And if not, at least from on behind the scenes, I can interview somebody about that and see. I've never heard of doing anything like that. And to be honest, I mean, and I'm not trying to be morbid, but I'm not sure they would have kept those hearing aids in or even cared about anything like that, because hearing aids aren't necessarily permanent. Also, on the whole, hearing aid, I wanted to see if anybody knows this because I honestly don't know. I have looked for exact.
So OC girl, so here's what we know. Besides the garage door opening and closing and the pacemaker being disconnected at 2:28 a.m. or whatever it was, there's no real evidence that she was there. The closest thing to evidence is that the pacemaker disconnecting. But there's no video evidence as far as we know, unless the local law enforcement is withholding. And then the only people who really know if she was indeed dropped off, Annie and Tommaso, right? Or one of them, or whoever was in that car, right? Jen B gifted 5 to break the case. Look at Jen B.
From law enforcement somewhere that there were hearing aids. Believe me, I know it's all out there. I just can't find the source of it. And that was something I had been working on, but I always like to source it before I say it. So for me, I like to keep with it came from law enforcement or something we saw with our own eyes. For instance, there's a lot of information to be gleaned from the Today Show information. Megyn Kelly just posted, and then I put it on Twitter yesterday. We have pictures of her room, what we believe to be her room, which I think were very interesting because, you know, it just kind of gives some insight. And it was right by that sliding glass door. A lot of people have said, no, that's not her room, but I believe that to be her room. But I prepared for this show, so I'm not prepared for that, but I'm so glad you put that bug in my ear, so to speak. And I'm going to look into that and get that answered. Jen B, you are the kindest person. 5 Break the Case memberships. Thanks so much. And this is going to come at the perfect time because I have kind of a cool little raffle to do. So just for fun. And when I say raffle, you don't have to pay just by being a member at that level. I think it's $1.99, $2.99, $3.99. I think at the $3.99 level, we're going to do this raffle for you. Anyway, back to all the speculation, all the nonsense, all the baloney that is coming out on this case, specifically the indictment of Mr. Sione and his wife, Annie, who is the daughter of Nancy. And I really hope that, like what happened in the Idaho 4 case, I really hope that people that are in the crosshairs of this irresponsible blaming that is going on right now, I really hope that they, especially when you're looking at something that could be up to 1 million views for all I know now. You know, I don't know how much you make with 1 million views. I've never had anywhere near that. I can't imagine what that would mean, but I would guess it would mean hundreds of thousands of dollars, I guess. I don't know.
No, 1 million views is not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe 10 grand. 10 grand per 1 million views on YouTube for a longer video. I could see that. But it's not like you make 100 grand from one video with 1 million views. 10 grand, sure.
But it's a lot. And I would love to see part of that money they made off of dragging their reputations through the mud. I would love to see that. I would love to see them come forward and sue and get some of their money back.
Woohoo! Jen Koffidover said, sue them. Sue the AI channel. That brings up another legal conundrum. Can you sue an AI channel? And if so, how would you do it? I mean, I don't know how you would do it, right? I mean, the only people who know who it is YouTube. YouTube knows because they have the email address. And then they would have whatever banking information, right, that you have to get paid out. But I'd be curious if that can even happen. But I paused the video because I wanted to say thank you for helping me get to 1,000 likes. Shadow the Night Owl is very calm and peaceful now that we got to 1,000 likes. So thank you very much. And make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already.
Okay, we're going to get into it. So anyway, in this program, as to why they are trying to prove that that Tommaso Siena and Annie, why they committed this murder, they pour out all of these quote unquote facts that are not true. And those are what I've been going over.
I was trying to keep it simple with Shadow the Night Owl, but there is also definitely Swift the Fox, spirit animal as well. Foxes are my other personal spirit animal.
We were right in the middle of that, and then I had to go. So one of the things they said, which this part is true, is between 5'9" and 5'10" is the porch guy. And that, of course, we know there's a tattoo that you can sort of make out on his wrist. And essentially, they are trying to say in this video, they kind of flounder back and forth, but they're trying to say that Tommaso is that same size based on the video of when he went to lay flowers with Annie and Savannah. No, he's just not. He is a really big, burly built guy. Also, look, this guy's eyes are so thin, much thinner, meaning Tommaso's are thinner. He's got this big bushy mustache. He's got these big burly eyebrows. It's just not him. So then they switch and they say, well, it must be the drummer that did it then. If it's not Tommaso, who they try to call the architect, well, it must be the drummer.
Well, Bella, that's what people are learning, right? Life, it's not necessarily who works the hardest or provides the most value. In our society, certain things are weighted higher. Entertainment, for example, is weighted higher than most things in terms of money. But here's the other thing, though. It's weighted higher if you make it. Many people try to make it on YouTube or podcasting, etc. Most fail. Nursing, on the other hand, higher success rate. People who go to nursing school, more likely they get their RN, BSN, right? Bachelor's in Science of Nursing. So granted, doesn't mean it's not easy. It's certainly not hard, it's certainly not easy to do it. It's hard work, and you actually have to provide value. I'm a big advocate of teachers, nurses, police, firefighters, EMTs, those kinds of positions. They're very necessary for society to go round. So I've always been for them getting paid more. But that being said, in our world, that isn't necessarily how it works. If you provide entertainment, look at movie stars, how musicians used to be, influencers, people like me, etc. You can get paid disproportionately well, but you have to make it. And it's certainly not easy to make it.
And they base that on the fact that 15, 20 years ago, he had that, he drunk in a bar, stole a watch, got a DUI, blah, 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 that somehow that equates to.
But Bella, what are mukbangs? I don't know what that is.
Him being at the level of being able to go in and grab an 84-year-old woman that is one of your best friends' mothers. And for what end? For what purpose? I've been saying all along, what did they really have to gain? And once we really digest that, there's no motive. There's no motive here for Annie and Tommaso that we know about. In other words, there's no motive concerning money, because Annie Guthrie had $1 million house. Once she sold it, would have gone down to, $250 for each kid maybe. And then you wouldn't have life insurance out at her age at 84, because your kids are well established. They don't need your money. When you have little kids, that's a big difference. But likely, we don't know 100% sure. So I preface when I say something I don't know 100% sure, I will just say, I haven't seen a case or know a situation where you would normally have that. All right. let's see. We've talked a little bit about the fact that the glove that was tested that was found 1.5 miles away, and I'm going to put a picture of this glove up because I think I can get it pretty easy. This glove was found 1.5 miles away.
This glove is useless, by the way. I don't think there's anything going on with this glove. They said it was someone in a restaurant's glove, right? They threw it out the window. I put absolutely zero stock on this glove. But this leads to the question, what do I put stock in? I put stock in if they can find the Nest Cam footage from the other Nest Cams. I put a lot of stock on that. I put some stock in the tower dumps. If they can figure that out with the cell phones, I would put some stock in that. I would also put some stock in the DNA in the house if they can do some genetic genealogy tests. I'd put some stock in some traffic footage if they can put 2 and 2 together. That might be a long shot. And I put a little bit of stock on that tattoo. But granted, it's going to be really difficult, I think, with the tattoo. But those are the things that I have a little bit of hope for.
It was found well after the area had previously been searched, and they were researching after the Bureau got pulled in. And the New York Post actually found law enforcement when they found this glove. So this is a true picture of the glove at the time it was found. And you can kind of see where law enforcement is coming from with these characteristics. Sorry. Let me get me off the screen with my bad hair day going on. Got it all tucked back in a ponytail. This glove is what's being tested. They tested it through CODIS. I want to bring up the fact that this is very important, that we not believe that this glove is necessarily the glove that would have been involved. It's possible, and I think we're all watching with kind of cautious optimism, I call it. It's when I hope a lead comes through, but I don't have any hope in it. And that's this. And recall that there was information regarding the restaurant worker, but remember there's 16 gloves they're looking through and testing. So I do not believe it was this glove. And I base that on something Chief Nano said, which was basically, it's not even this glove that everybody's all up in arms about. So again, my go-tos have always been law enforcement, because they know. Yes, is it true that Chief Nanos?
So OC girl, I looked up what the New York Post said. They just said at 2 a.m. and the disconnection, it may have signaled a arrhythmia, but they didn't say it did signal an arrhythmia.
Has lost some credibility, yes, but he's the best we got. Is better than sources we don't know. It's way better than that, because it's not that you can't believe the reporter. I believe the reporters. It's just that.
Correct, Bella. There is no evidence. The guy spoke in a tricky way. He said, oh, there might have been a signal of distress, but he didn't say there was a signal of distress. Sneaky language.
I can't believe the second or third hand information coming to the reporters. So I always want to preface that. All right, let's see. So basically what this account is saying on the show as to why Tommaso, one of the reasons Tommaso's guilty is because his DNA wouldn't be in CODIS and the DNA from this glove wasn't in CODIS. Do you see how ridiculous that assertion is? That's why I'm saying when you look at logic and you make a statement like that, it's so silly to say because somebody is not in CODIS, that means they committed a crime. It's so ridiculous. And the number of people.
By the way, did we go over the fact that Sheriff Nanos now thinks that the crime was targeted? Did anyone hear this? NBC News is reporting it 5 hours ago. Let's see. So we're at 30 minutes here.
Tonight, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos giving an update on the search for Nancy Guthrie nearly 6 weeks since her disappearance.
Do you think that this suspect could strike again, whoever did this?
Well, absolutely. We believe we know why he did this, and we believe that it was targeted.
We did know it, but we didn't know Sheriff Nano said it too.
But we're not 100% sure of that. And so it'd be silly to tell people, yeah, don't worry about it. You're not his target. Don't think for a minute that because it happened to the Guthrie family, you're safe. No, keep your wits about you.
We pressed Nanos about that potential motive.
There is something that's come out in the investigation that gives you a sense of motive here and why this person did this?
I think it's come out from day one. I think from day one, we had some strong beliefs about what happened, and those beliefs haven't diminished.
Do you believe it was a burglary gone wrong?
I'm not going to get into those theories. We have our beliefs. Everybody else has theirs.
Nanos says he's intentionally withholding their theory.
But OC, Bella has said a lot of times that the doctors aren't monitoring it the way that people think they are. This doesn't work that way.
And other details in the case, citing the integrity of the investigation. He confirmed investigators have been asking about potential internet issues the night of Nancy's abduction and said they're looking into the possibility a Wi-Fi jammer could have been used or if there was some other electrical disruption that night. The sheriff also says he's still hopeful the DNA found in the home will lead to the suspect. Liz Kreutz, NBC News.
We thank you for.
So the title is not misinformation. Megyn Kelly clearly said that Savannah Guthrie is very upset with Ashleigh Banfield because she reported about Tommaso being a prime suspect. That is facts, according to Megyn Kelly. So cat dog, definitely not misinformation.
Number of people in CODIS, by the way, it's probably, this person says 19 million. I think it's closer to 26 million. There are hundreds of millions of people in this country, and so that are not in CODIS. So when you look at it from that standpoint, CODIS is actually very, very small, and we in law enforcement.
Megyn Kelly knows Savannah Guthrie. Yes, if you have a problem with what Megyn Kelly said, go tell Megyn Kelly.
Understand that. What's big is 23andMe and Ancestry.com and all these databases that have all these millions and millions of people that go there, and they want to know whether they're a Viking or whether they're an Irishman or, whether they, lived in a teepee, their ancestors. Anyway, there's so much I could say about that, but I don't want to burst anybody's bubble about how all that works. But nevertheless, they give up their DNA, and that is how so many of these cases are solved and everything, as you well know. I want to address BB's question. I think it's possible Porch Guy has a problem with his hand and that fact could possibly have located. BB, there's so many unique things about Porch Guy. Let's put him back up. So many things. His eye, to me, is one of the biggest things. Let me see if I can get him up here with his eye. Where are you? Porch Guy in your eye. He has this eye. You see how it tails in toward the inside of his nose? And I actually have that same problem too. One of my eyes tails in. If you know me long enough and have talked to me long enough in person, you'll see it kind of. And that was one of the first things I noticed with him is he has an eye that tails in. Tommaso doesn't have an eye that tails in at all. His eye is so squarely. He's got whites on both sides. The one eye kind of has the heavier eyelid that's going on. It's just not him. But I agree that to me, that little tattoo and the pinky ring and the way he dresses, because as I said, people are they have habits and they have ways.
It's 111, or it was 111 on Friday the 13th. You can make a wish.
Ways they're comfortable and ways they dress, and that is what they stay true to. And committing crimes and doing things doesn't change all of that. So I think this backpack, how he dressed, his shoe wear. I don't think that was special for this occasion. I think that's him. And of course, the eyebrows and all these other things. I mean, I agree, BB, that many of the things are going to point out. I just don't, with the hands, I can't tell if possibly isn't.
I really don't think porch guy there is Tommaso. Dude, it's not. It's just not.
Double gloved, or possibly he, didn't just grab the wrong size glove and his hands are smaller and that glove is overwhelming the hand. Don Sullivan, I don't feel like those are his real eyes. Is it possible he could have put something in front of them? That was an interesting question somebody else had asked, and I have another picture. This picture is pretty darn clear from the video. I think those are his real eyes. I don't think he has anything in front of them. I think what you're seeing, and why I would see why you would think that, is that glare that's coming off the Nest camera, that light that illuminates. And then when you combine that with the fact he gets a flashlight in there, and so now you have this huge glare in some other pictures, I think it's distorting how we're seeing those eyes. Thank you so much, Legendary. That is so kind of you and generous. I appreciate it. I want to talk to you guys about another project I have going on, but I don't want to spoil it. It's a huge project. And it's a project that's all about trying to solve this case and kind of putting my, my money where my mouth is, if you will, on one of the things I think could really, really solve this case. Oops, let me put this up on the stage. Okay, back to the miscues that this person is alleging. And believe me, and the reason I didn't just point him up, there are so many things that he is saying in this video. And then I see TikTokers and I see other creators and I see people on social media just running with it. And I could tell it comes straight from this. You know how? Because when you see a lie, a mistruth, a distortion repeated, and it's not a fact, it came from that, right? So it just keeps regurgitating. But you can tell typically the genesis. And I really believe this one video is the genesis. But I'm knocking out hopefully some of the other stuff you all have seen out there. At the end, I want to take on at least 3 questions, or if you want to bring them up here, I just want to, if you have questions specifically about things.
By the way, please remember to like the video. Likes are free, and they are for my spirit animal, Shadow the Night Owl, and Swift the Fox. Come say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat here. We've got a great group of people, very supportive and encouraging group. Also, super chats are a great way to support the channel and get questions answered. Super stickers, great way to support the channel. And becoming a channel member gives you access to the members-only live chats. Today was the first one of those, and it went really well.
You've heard, because that's what we're kind of talking about, is kind of dispelling the crazy rumors. And you know what tomorrow we're going to do? Look at this. I'm completely digressing again. But tomorrow we're going to talk about the Daily Mail was kind enough to call me up. And the last time I talked to this reporter was actually during the Idaho 4. And the Idaho 4 case, he did several articles that I think were really good. And in this article, and I haven't even read it yet, although he sent it to me, I think it's posted. I go through and talk about the six possible, theories that are out there about what happened. And he interviewed me probably at least a week ago, maybe over a week ago. But I don't think there's any new information that would change, my thoughts on it. And I haven't read the article, but if y'all want to take a look, I think we're going to discuss the 6 theories that are out there. And because I'd love to get your takes, and I want to hear what you all have to say and what you think. All right. So he goes on to say, and I'm going to try to stay more on track because I'm digressing too much.
So here's the point about the pacemaker. If there's people in the house trying to abduct her, of course your heart rate's going to go up. Of course there's going to be something going on if it's being tracked. I don't even know what that's supposed to even like signify. Like, of course there's something going on. It's just a matter of like, when was she killed? If she was killed. So again, was she killed before she got out? After that point? Was it somewhere else? I don't know. I think she was certainly hit in some form, and that's where the blood came from on the front step, and maybe a cough, which signifies like a cough. You can do a bodily function of a cough even when you're dead, like final gasps, that can happen, kind of like a death rattle.
He goes on to say in this video that the reason that, and he fluctuates, that the drummer is more likely porch guy is because he says the family is cleared. But do you see how, to your question, case file 100, that's last I knew, but I think they've pared that way down. Last we knew 100, but back to what I was saying here is the family, he says, is cleared, including Tommaso. So because of that, porch guy is most likely the drummer. Do you see how he makes no sense?
I mean, I think they just made a mistake. I think the Guthrie family, whoever was in charge of Nancy's security, if it was Tommaso or Annie, or even if it was Savannah or Cameron, they made a mistake. Like they were thinking, well, she has an S-Cam, and they probably put it off with an S-Cam subscription. And yeah, she should have had a home security system, but she didn't. And again, that just got put off. She didn't have one for years. And they probably thought to themselves, oh, we'll get to it. What's the need? We live in a safe area for the most part. And they put it off and put it off. And then now they're learning the hard way. Oh, whoops. We shouldn't have put it off. Whoops. We should have had an S-Cam subscription. Whoops. Wouldn't it have been nice to have a home security system that was notified the second when someone tried to break in? Right? But hindsight's always 20/20. And I can see how that can happen. But that's what people can learn from this case. Yeah, don't let that be you. So if you're putting something off like that in your own life, or it involves loved ones in your family, make sure you do something about it.
So he says Tommaso's cleared, but in the same sentence, he says he's the architect. In other words, the one that put this whole crime together, the murder, not for money, because he says it's not a kidnapping, because it says it's a murder of Nancy Guthrie, that Tommaso is the architect, Annie knows about it and was involved, and the drummer is porch guy. That's what this premise is that we're working on dispelling here. But you see the logic again, bad logic that he's trying to use to make his points. Okay. He also tries to point out that the drummer is affiliated in some way to Rio Rico. Now, remember, Rio Rico was where the gentleman and his mom, they did a search warrant there. There's been 2 instances like that where law enforcement went out. But the first one was at Rio Rico. He ended up being a delivery guy. He's not sure whether he delivered there. And so I think, and the guy had some similar characteristics to porch guy in the facial area. I mean, I totally understood that, probably because it was based on a tip. Likely the FBI got a tip and somebody dimed this guy out, said, listen, he's a delivery guy. You know, he's sketchy. He just lost his house, which all of that was true. He just moved in with his mother. He looks just like him. Look at this picture. And so I think law enforcement followed the lead regarding that individual. And he had some other issues. But nevertheless, you see what this creator is doing, just throwing out that the drummer has some relationship with Rio Rico. He's playing on the stupidity of the people following him, of the gullibleness, I should say, not the stupidity, but the gullible. Oh, I'll throw out Rio Rico because.
Yeah, and she's definitely talking about that AI video that we went over. But here's the thing. People loved it. People loved it when I played it, and people loved it on that person's channel. So it goes to show you, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like that kind of thing. But then there's a big group of people that does, because they're the ones watching, apparently.
Because we know that was involved in the case. And that'll prove that the drummer, Tommaso's friend of 19 years, decided to go murder Nancy. And I say murder because in this deal, he's not really talking about a kidnapping or an abduction. And so I'm going with his premise just for the sake of this discussion. So anyway, throws that out of the blue. Then he says, the 600,000, why did they pick, the 6 million. So now this creator is not only drawing in, again, Rio Rico, he's drawn in the drummer now. He said that they're all involved because that glove that they found 1.5 miles away wasn't in CODIS. I know, it's so illogical when you break it down. He does a nice job with pictures and with putting it all together in Dateline type fashion that has everybody confused. But when you break down the words and break down his messages, you see it completely falls apart. So he says, and listen, that's $6 million. So now he's trying to say that the notes are tied in. And I have to say, something about those notes bothers me. They do. It bothers me. First of all, I think that those notes were created to absolutely torture Savannah and her family. I think that's the whole purpose. They never planned on getting any sort of and
I don't know if I agree with that by Jennifer there. She thinks the notes were meant to torture Savannah and their family. I would believe that if I thought the people that did this wrote the notes. But since I don't believe that, I think it was really just someone trying to exploit the situation. That's what I think. If I thought it was the person that actually did it, then I would agree, because I think the motive was punishment, revenge. But I just don't think the people that did it wrote the notes. That's just me. I'm not a former FBI agent, as Jennifer Coffendorfer is.
The people who wrote those, they never planned on getting any money. I think it was likely written through an AI program. How do you write the best note? Because according to TMZ, it was so well written, so highly educated. Well, that's because I believe they used AI to write it. And I think that they never wanted money. The people who wrote that note, they're just throwing that out there, like all the cases that I've had, that agents have had, that we all discuss about people who do this. They've arrested one, remember? He wanted, I can't remember the dollar amount, it was huge, a Bitcoin from Annie and Tommaso, and he texted them. So he ran the same scam. He just wasn't smart enough to go through the media outlets. This was all about attention, the reason behind the notes, I believe, and to torture the family. But because this crime really ended up torturing the family, sometimes I just see, I don't know, the result links them, but I don't know that anything else does. But anyway, he's trying to link them. This account is saying $6 million. You know why they demanded $6 million? He's so dramatic in this part. He says they demanded $6 million because it was 20 years of buildup. Basically, that Tommaso married Annie 20 years ago, and it's based on sort of this.
So Sarah, if you want to know what a wizard's nighttime snack is, every night I have popcorn, carrots, and an orange. Popcorn for fiber, carrots for a vegetable and to get some of the popcorn out of my teeth, and orange for a serving of fruit. Every night I do the same thing. And I don't have bagged the popcorn. I have the raw kernels because I don't like bagged popcorns, the muck that's in there. But that's my routine every night.
20 years of hatred, and I guess 3 million to Annie, 3 million to Tommaso, 3 million to the drummer. I mean, he just totally pulls this out of thin air and basically blames the buildup of retribution or hatred toward Nancy based on 20 years of essentially building up his hate for her that he would want her murdered. It's such a ridiculous leap, but that's the premise he's going with. All right. Again, he believes the ransom notes are real. So by his accounting, he not only believes that Tommaso is the architect behind all of this, he now believes it's a murder, but then he weaves in the notes that he believes are real. I know it's all over the place. When you watch it, it looks so smooth until you dissect it. Let's see. Oh gosh, this was hard to listen to. So he says the reason that Tommaso, I guess, involved the drummer, he doesn't talk about 19 years of friendship and all this. Well, he mentions that, but this is why he says the drummer.
So we're at 1.1 thousand likes, which is really good. But if you're here, over 3,000 of you here, please remember to like the video. Leave your DNA on that like button. Likes are free. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And consider becoming a channel member so you can get access to the members only live chats. I'm live almost every night at a little bit after 10 p.m. Eastern to talk about true crime and current events. And I use my experience with addiction, mental health, narcissistic abuse, narcissistic family systems, and being on the spectrum myself. And I apply that to give my own unique insights on true crime and current events.
He said, and this is so hokey, he says the drummer responds to shifts. He makes coordinated moves. He's synchronous in his actions, not just in drumming. It's so ridiculous. In other words, you know, that because he's a good drummer, he's going to be a good murderer. I can't imagine if there's any drummers in chat, what you must be thinking right now, or any musicians that hear this. But basically that's what he's saying, because the guy's a drummer. He's synchronous in his moves on the porch and you know, anyway, it's just ridiculous.
She's reading the transcript from a video that she went over. I'm pretty sure she's going over one of the crime unresolved videos. We went over both of them on the channel, and I'm pretty sure she's ridiculing them because they make some accusations and make it seem as if Tommaso and the other guy were certainly involved. Not Luke Daly, but the other guy. And Jen doesn't like it very much, so she's breaking it down.
Let's see. He talks about the car that was seen about 2 miles away that is on the video that people aren't talking a lot about anymore. The sheriff was very confusing about that. I'm going to tell you the two general things, and I need to literally do a thing where I just show clips from the sheriff as it relates to these really key important points of the investigation. But in one clip, he basically kind of dispels that car. Like, yeah, we looked into it, and you know what? There's tens of thousands of cars out there, and it's just one of the many. In other words, it went by that road. And I kind of agree on that, only from the standpoint that they are going to be looking not about that road area, but they're going to be looking at tens of thousands of cars that are on light cameras, traffic cams, ring cams, you know, Nest cams, all the camera footage of different cars they have that were in and about at that time. Law enforcement might have a better timeline as to when this all began. We know 147, the Nest camera was taken off. But what about prior to that? Were they seen? Was there a suspicious vehicle seen in Tommaso and Annie's neighborhood? By all the investigation they did there, you know, I just can't rule that out, that they weren't followed to Nancy's house rather than laying in wait, which also makes a lot of sense, because you don't want to lay in wait necessarily at the house you're getting ready to abduct somebody in. It just calls more attention, I think, to that area. Better to be laying in wait at another place and then follow so you know for sure your victim is going to be there. So I'm very curious as to how that all worked, or if they didn't do that at all. Maybe they weren't at Annie and Tomaso's at all, and they weren't at Nancy's. Maybe they knew, though, at a particular time that she would be home. You know, who isn't home at 1:47 in the morning that's 84 years old? It would be quite typical for her to be there, especially if they had done any recent reconnaissance showing that she was there rather than in studio with Savannah or something of that nature. So anyway, they talk about the fact that this vehicle could have been going to Tomaso's house, could have been going to the drummer's house, or could have been going to Mexico. They don't really make a point about that. And quite frankly, we don't know if it's important or not, but I'll tell you the most recent statement made about that car by the sheriff. The most recent statement, he says, we haven't identified that car. That was really jaw-dropping to me, because it seems pretty clear. A lot of online sleuths have. TMZ put up a recent picture that I need to put up that really, you know, they use their video folks, and they've got that drawn down pretty tight. Again, if it's not from law enforcement, I'm always, you know, qualify everything. But I just would think they have identified that car. But the sheriff says no. That was in his latest. I think he said that on March 2nd. And that it's one of the many cars they're looking into. So I don't know if you remember this, but TMZ, about 5 or 6 hours after that video footage came out, TMZ said their source, so everybody's got a source, their source says, sorry, TMZ, I'm just saying, anyway, TMZ said their source said it was.
So chat, I'm going to show you this. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it, but can you see that picture? Tomaso. That's his right arm. That right arm would be tattooed if it was the guy on the porch. There's no tattoos on that arm.
Wasn't involved. That's what their FBI source told them. Well, then, you know, everybody started really doubting that. And then the sheriff came out, like I said, on the 2nd, it said, we haven't identified the car. So if that's the case, I don't know how they could have ruled it out or ruled it in. But anyway, in this account, they basically try to throw out the, you know, some sort of bomb that this car could have been heading to the home of Tomaso or to the drummer. And I'm like, it could have been heading anywhere, you know, depending on how you want to figure out where that car would have turned, somewhere way down the way. So anyway, again, it's kind of logically dissecting what he says and how he's trying to weave everything together to point the finger when it doesn't do any of that. Okay. Let's see here.
Well, look. Tomaso and DE. No tattoos on either of them. This is a better one. Cat is so inappropriate.
Again, he talks about how this relationship.
Well, Tomaso's hair looks much grayer than it does here.
Essentially, and this was the last point he makes, between Tomaso and the drummer is an architect with an operator. I think that's what his final conclusion is, that there's this architect, and that's Tomaso, and the operator, and they work together to kill. He talks not just about abducting, but killing Nancy, and then sent these letters. He tries to weave it all together. I'm just saying it's horrible to say that. especially, and I'm going to put this up here. Let me grab it really quick. Especially when they have been cleared according to a very strong statement, again, from the sheriff. And I know a lot of people don't want to give credence to what the sheriff says. They would rather give credence.
Jen, show me the picture.
To what an unnamed, unknown, unfaced, unvetted source would say over what somebody who is at least in the know would say. Now, again, I get it. He hasn't been the best at, sorry, I want to put this one up too. This again is what he says about the doorbell image. And when I see something go in writing, as opposed to I hear him say something, I give it a lot more credence. And I give it a lot more credence because I believe that prior to him putting this in writing, he's going to run this by the FBI. And I say that because that's how it works, from being behind the scenes for 28 years and working with locals, being on task forces. That's just how it works. And at this level, at a case that has this much looking at, I just don't think he's going to say this. And I've heard him verbally say it very recently again. And I posted it. There is no date or timestamp on the images. So my point is, how can a source know this? How can law enforcement know this? Now, they might have something else they're working with that is how they know that. So we can't rule that out. I'm just saying that I tend to believe that they were able to get the footage, but not the timestamps. And I know I've seen some experts go on and say, yeah, but you would see the timestamps. And I just want to ask those experts, because this is what makes a person an expert on this.
I will say that picture of Dominic and Tommaso, they look much more recent than any other thing else I've seen. I will say that.
Ever had to get footage that was never saved on a cloud, that was never part of a subscription, that was never part of a SIM card? Have you ever worked with the FBI side by side to extract, and Google side by side to extract? It would have taken, I think it was 10 days to extract the information and come up with those images and with the video. And again, who put it out? Who put it out was the FBI. The FBI put these images out without the timestamp. So all of that is leading me to believe they don't have the timestamp. Could they developed it another way? It's possible. No, I am not saying they doctored the video. Exactly what I'm saying is they didn't doctor the video, and we just don't have the timestamp. Because when it was retrieved from the bowels of Google on somehow it's described as layers and layers and layers of probably millions of footage, because she didn't have a subscription, that they were able to retrieve these images from this particular camera at this particular, at her location. But Nano says there's no timestamp. The FBI released it without a timestamp, and they said they did it within hours of getting it because they wanted to get it directly to the public. Remember, and this is something I really want to strongly point out, that again, I'm surprised that we're caught in just crazy stories and, things that aren't really, to me, that important when it comes to this case. And that is this guy, a guy capable of abducting, terrorizing, and possibly murdering Nancy Guthrie is still out there. And I believe there's accomplices, and they're still out there. This guy's capable of murder, in my opinion. I think the chances that Nancy are alive are very slim, but minimally. He's The chances that anybody would commit this crime and not realize the likelihood of the person who's 84 years old, who needs medication, who has a pacemaker, all of that, this guy is evil and he's dangerous. And law enforcement knows that. They know they need to get this guy off the streets. The number one goal, get Nancy, save Nancy. The number two goal is save everybody else from this guy and any accomplices he may have. That's the goal. And how can that be done? The number one way that can be done is to keep this video out there and to keep those still images out there to make sure that.
So chat, do you want me to go through some of the pictures of Tommaso and the band? Press 1 if yes, or 2, you wanted rather just listen to Jen here.
Not just us in the true crime community, but everybody in Tucson knows about this. You wouldn't believe, people just don't know. I guarantee if you all who are true crimers, go talk to the parents of your kids, or to, if you play bridge or, cards, talk to your card group, bridge group.
No Black Sabbath allowed, Kat. So it looks like most people want us to look for the pictures. So we are at 56 minutes. All right. You guys see? Let's go through. Whoops. First pick. Yeah. It's going to be difficult. But these are all the pictures. These look relatively new to me with him and him. I mean, Tommaso's beard there looks even grayer than it does in the picture on Jen's screen. No tattoo. No tattoo. No tattoos that we can see. No tattoo. I don't know who this is. No. Clickbait. But as far as I can tell, no. I can't see it. Those are the only pictures that are available. Look at him. Certainly not porch guy. No tattoo. And him, oh, look at Cash Patel. And that guy just doesn't look big enough to be porch guy either. Tommaso looks too big. He looks too small. What do you think? That's what I think. So the shepherd of black sheep thinks he's ruling them out. I think, at least from being the person on the porch.
group, or if you know, whatever you do, you golf, you know, garden, whatever it is you do, talk to, you know, your nursery people. Do you know how few people have even seen any of this, even in that area? Do you guys remember when the pizza guy went to the front porch of Nancy's, called in? I guess JLR did this. JLR, you know what? JLR is boots on the ground, and I appreciate that he's there and doing his thing. Listen, he makes more money than I will ever, in a month probably, than I will ever dream of making in a year at live streaming and looking at javelinas eat flowers and, you know, video recording crazies and ordering pizza to a crime scene. You know, he's innovative. And, you know, just, I know he has a terrible criminal record. I know he's done a lot of time, but at least he owns that. And he says he's, you know, tried to turn another leaf. I think everybody, I always say everybody deserves a second chance, but I think you have to be, you know, you have to be careful, because what he did were fraud violations, which means lying to people and misrepresenting for money. So, you know, you have to be careful, but I don't want to talk bad about JLR. Look, JLR does good work. He's out there. He's tireless. He's drinking his Red Bulls. But anyway, I digressed again. And I agree, for Deuces, everyone deserves a second chance. And he puts video footage and things to support the things he says. And, you know, so I think that's a great thing. But back to this, these guys are dangerous. They're out there. They need to be found. This is what I want. And maybe I'll call jail.
Who is James, the drunk dude? I don't know who that even is. Is that the person that got a DUI in front of Nancy's house?
JLR, I want to see this at the beginning and the end of all your live streams, please. Because, you know, that's what needs to be out here. I want to add this to the stage again about the clearing and why I'm doing this video. And this hopefully will be the last.
Yeah, I don't think Jen doesn't like JLR. She was just applauding him and said, I'm glad he's boots on the ground. And he's probably doing really well. So I don't think she doesn't like him. Even Nancy Grace did mention him the other day. If I would have thought anyone wouldn't like him, I would have thought it was Nancy Grace, considering her background.
Last video I do, but on this subject, which is just the nonsense against Tommaso and the lies that are being told, in my opinion. You can't have a video where you say, this is accurate, so it must be the drummer, and then end your video saying Tommaso's the architect of the murder of Nancy Guthrie. And again, I hope they're sued. I hope this account and the other accounts that continue to say this, I really do hope they're sued. But the family has been cleared. And unless this is, what's this? Sorry, I've got my glasses on so I can actually see. He didn't order any pizza to Nancy's house. Oh, I don't know. I believed he did. I think he even admitted to that, but he didn't mean it to go to the house. He meant it to go to him. My whole point about this is that even the pizza guy who does deliveries, who probably knows that area better than anybody except law enforcement, and maybe even knows it better to law enforcement because all day long he delivers pizza in Pima County. He had no idea who Nancy Guthrie was. He had no idea what house he was going to.
So James, the drunk guy, said a local lawyer had her killed. What? I mean, what was his reasoning? Is it worth even giving it the time of day? I don't know. I'm very confused now on who James the drunk guy is. And what's his relation to the case? Just because there's shorts videos about it doesn't mean there's anything to it. Right. And just because someone spoke to JLR doesn't mean anything. Like it could be a freaking person that wants to be on freaking YouTube. I don't judge anyone until I actually know them. I know fully well people can be a completely different person behind closed doors. So just because I see someone on YouTube doesn't mean I know anything about them. And anyone who has any wisdom about narcissism or any other kinds of personality disorders would know what you see is not who they are. They can be completely different. You just don't know it. So you should be very skeptical. What video is he on? I don't know what I'm looking for. That's as far up as it goes. This is as far up as it goes. What are they titled? Right, that's where we are. These are shorts. Where? Brian Guthrie? No, Brian Etten. Brian Etten's much different than Brian Guthrie. And what did he say? I mean, what you got to be able to explain it to me. Are we very sure it's just not people trying to grasp at straws to trying to find something? Which live was it? Right. Which live stream was it? Which day? Was it a live stream from today? Yesterday? That's not what it is, though, Hill. I asked him if it was the drunk driving person.
News.
So we only have 11 hours to go through. So where is it? Is this him? Is this him? Mace, you can do that because it's going to take forever to find this. We're looking for this drunk person that says there's something going on. It's not on JLR's channel. You didn't watch it. It must have been someone else's channel that clipped it. DGL. We're looking for this person's James, the drunk person that they said it was a short, but then it wasn't. Two days ago, someone said it was today. There's so many conflicting people telling me conflicting things. He took it down. Did he take it down? The Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. Send it on Instagram. I should pop right up there. And if you do that, I'll pull it up so we can watch. This person?
It's not connecting for some reason. Okay, there we go. Hold on. Oh, there's party guy. Oh shoot, guys, party guy's here. What up, boss? How you doing, boss?
Wes, find me Brian Guthrie.
Well, who?
Brian Guthrie. He's out here somewhere. I'm gonna solve this fucking crime tonight.
Let's go.
You know what I mean?
You know what I mean?
I need him.
How do I get a hold of him? I mean,
He's somewhere here.
The old drunk guys. Seldom right, but never in doubt.
Yeah, let me make some calls.
I'll wait for a minute. Okay.
Okay. Let me make a call.
I could have brought some food over here too if you asked.
Let me see if I got a snack or something.
I like you. So,
Thank you.
I know exactly where this guy's at, dude.
Yeah?
100%.
Dang.
Because they're not looking for the right people. They're looking for children.
Whoa.
That's why they can't find them. Because
Oh.
they're kids.
Youth. Mm-hmm.
I don't give a shit. Where's Brian at?
Well, I'm gonna make some meat.
My dad right here, man. We gotta look. I only have a minute.
You do?
Wait.
And yes, I do know with JLR who he impersonated before, but I'm indulging people in the chat that wanted to see this because they thought it was interesting. So I'm going to see what I think of it.
DD is running really, really quick. Find him.
You got his number? Who? Brian Gunthry's?
Guthrie.
Yeah.
He's here somewhere. I just saw him on.
You saw my video?
I don't even Let me take a look.
Yeah. Look. Yeah. Did you see him?
No, I mean he's out here like I just saw him on Surviving the Survivor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's here somewhere.
Let me go check over there.
I mean, to go hunt somewhere. Okay.
The drunk dude makes it like a circus over there.
Let me go check it.
Wait, yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
That isn't my problem.
No, I know. I just don't want you to get in trouble.
How would you go into there? Come down off this town.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can go in there.
Since they're fucking kids. Yeah, no, you did my camera. I don't give a shit.
Oh yeah, I know you don't care. Oh, let me get out of the way. This guy came to party.
I got a fucking good attorney right now.
Oh, right now?
Just save some woman's life. Okay, you know what I'm saying? That's who I came to party with.
Walter Nash. You said Walter Nash.
Yes, this dirtbag fucking attorney.
Why do you think he's involved? Like Walter?
I think that they just went to the wrong house. You know what I'm saying?
Did authorities ever speak to you?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
About anything?
Oh, they didn't.
So his big theory is they thinks that they went to the wrong house. I don't know about that one, Jack.
Catch up with you that day? You can?
Look, Walter Nash is a dirtbag fucking cartel drug dealer. Okay, period. The period. You got another pit. You know what I'm saying? Find him. He's easy to locate down there in town. All his clients are fucking drug dealers. They fucking poison the fucking Tucson community. All of them are. Period. And his house is located up here somewhere.
Oh, he lives in there?
Mm-hmm.
What's your name?
My name is James.
Hi, James. I'm JLR.
James, I got my dad in the listen.
Your dad driving?
Yeah, Walter Nash is a cartel attorney. Why would you come over here and knock around an 80-year-old woman when you could knock that fucking head of the fucking, you know what I'm saying? I'm telling you.
It kind of sounds like he's talking out of his ass to me.
I think they're here somewhere. This is my idea. You got my fucking name. I don't give a shit.
What you do for a living?
Me?
Yeah.
It's pretty normal. I'm a flight attendant.
You're a flight attendant?
Yeah.
For who?
American.
You work for American Airlines?
Yeah.
Oh boy. How's life working at American?
You know the green electrical box that was broken into?
It's fun the games ever done. You know what I'm saying? I love it though. I got my wings. You know.
How long you been working with them
I get
for?
to see the file. I get to see. I got a friend in Miami's. I got a friend here. I live here. I have a friend in Miami. Friend there. We fly the whole country. We see everything.
Really? You've been everywhere.
Singapore.
You been to Singapore?
Hey, is that lace?
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
They're delicious. They're addictive and delicious.
The thing I said.
You want to say hi on the camera?
Thank you so much.
No, I think this guy's just like out of his gourd, and the fact that anyone's taking him seriously is kind of feeding right into it.
You want to say hi on the
They
camera?
last longer than chocolate, which is gone in 6
This nice, kind person brought lollipops. What are these? Like, where are they?
seas suckers.
Sea suckers.
Yeah, but
that's
what I
cool.
also brought for what company are you with?
Taylor Investigate YouTube. We're on YouTube.
Oh,
right now.
YouTube.
Yeah, we're YouTube
Well-
live. Look, we got 24,000 people watching live.
Watching live. I brought this for Liz.
Oh wow,
And I
truffles.
brought another one for the news.
No, Kendra, tell me what we're going to find if I watch the first video, because so far this has been a waste of time. So rather than waste my time, tell me what we're going to find in the first video.
But they're not here at the moment.
But it's showing support for people that are covering this case and bringing attention to Nancy,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely, Lord.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure how to get it to her.
Mhm.
I took a picture of this, send in the reinforcements.
Oh, can I show that? Send in the reinforcements. Backwards, what it says, send in the reinforcements.
And that's one of them among a multitude is me.
Man, where are you at? Where
There
are
you go.
you looking for?
I'm gonna put this back here.
What am I looking for? Yes.
There's
And then Miracle.
nothing. And then what's the first video? J is for Justice. Is that the channel it's on?
Fucking drug dealers, man. You know what I'm saying? You don't work for the government. He fucking takes money from people.
So how about this, James? So look, if he did it, what was his motive to get Nancy? What's his motive? Like, if you know he's a piece of shit, he's a drug dealer, what would be his motive to take Nancy?
Because one of them owed him money.
What, a family member or something?
Someone owed him money.
Someone owed him money.
I live in this fucking place, man.
Yeah.
This is my town. You know what I mean? I mean, who can figure it out? You know, like, you got my dad over there, all right? You know what I'm saying?
You
We're
and your
trying
dad?
to we're trying to
That's
figure
awesome.
like, we're trying to fix
So
this.
that's what we're doing too. We're just trying to find her.
You can say that too, man. I hate that piece of shit.
What did
You
he
know
do
what
to
I'm
you? Like, how do you know him?
Yeah, what did he do to you, man?
Like, what's
Fill us
going
in.
on?
So there's his motive to lie about the lawyer right there. I hate that piece of shit. So, by the way, don't let that influence what I'm about to say next. The fact that I hate this guy, that has nothing to do with the fact I'm going to accuse him.
You know what I don't like about him?
Huh.
Because he poisons people.
How, with the
Drugs.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think you should go to the police with this information. If they don't know, you said they know.
He thinks they know. I think you should probably share that.
I think we're just coming out here. Look, I brought my dad out of here, or like I was trying to find the reporter.
I feel sick.
Talking about Brian,
No, fuck that guy, man. He's a fucking cartel, fucking drug dealer, man. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, I mean, that's where if anybody knows.
I'm gonna have to watch some Brian Nitton and Maureen to soothe my soul after this.
That's who knows.
You know anybody who has any?
Who are you here with? Are you driving?
Dad? No.
Your dad's driving?
I would have said something. So your dad, huh?
And my dad doesn't know that.
Life happens, right?
You know what I'm saying? Life happens and shit, and I know exactly. If anybody in this town knows who did it.
Is it maybe because you have a grudge on him?
Yeah, maybe you could say.
Okay. I don't see how that could be.
He just told on himself. Is it because you have a grudge on him that you're saying this? Maybe, yeah. So he's kind of just talking out of his ass, and he's drunk, and so he wants to make that whatever his dude's name, the lawyer, look bad.
Maybe you could say. But no. But if anybody in this town knows where she's at,
he would not.
That's exactly no. That's exactly. How do we call his fucking phone number?
Was he like your attorney one time or something?
No, actually not. I don't fucking have piece of shit attorneys like him. You know,
Was he? So how did you meet?
Fucking drug dealers, man. You know what I'm saying? He don't work for the government. He fucking takes.
There could be truth about other things, but not about this case, Wendy. No.
So how about this, James? So look, if he did it, what was his motive to get lunacy? What's his motive? Like, if you know he's a piece of shit, he's a drug dealer, what would be his motive to take Nancy?
Because one of them owed him money.
What, a family member or something?
Someone owed him money.
All right. Not really that much wiser from that.
He had no idea about any of it. So my point is that people in that community need to know. We think everybody must know, but it's just not true. It's just not.
He strikes me as the kind of guy that maybe he got in trouble with the law and now he's got a grudge against that lawyer and now he's drunk and he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to implicate him in this disappearance just because I can. And then JLR indulges him, blasts him to hundreds of thousands of people, which is kind of irresponsible, actually, if you ask me. Like Brian Nitton would never do that.
True. Okay, let me look at Tiger Shark Diver. Cool name. I believe it is one serial predator. 1.2 too much. 1.2 million too much. You know what? We don't know of any other serial cases like this. In other words, if you're saying that this is his first rodeo, in other words, that he's like a Brian Koberger and he goes and he murders 4, meaning I think to murder only 1. But then he does a hot mess. He does this great job of recon until the night of the thing. You know, all of us in the FBI, before we do the hit, we set up on it before the hit that day, not just, yeah, you do recon throughout several weeks to kind of see patterns and things, but then.
And Corey, I'd love to go watch the IR with Maureen, but they are not friendly to me, so I will never watch them again.
Hours before you're going to do the hit, you better darn well have your recon, your surveillance units that are watching it for hours in advance because people leave. I was just thinking there's so many cases I could talk about, but anyway, to stress the point of doing the recon first because of the crazy things that will happen.
Drunk people can tell the truth, but they can also lie as well.
But on the day you intend to do a search warrant or an arrest warrant. And it only happens on that day. We always called it Murphy. Murphy gets involved. For those of you who know what I mean, it's Murphy's Law. And Murphy's Law is what can go wrong, will go wrong. And that's the world of law enforcement. And that's the world of this case. It was so dark, which I think was well planned in that way when they decided to hit and strike. Other than the fact they chose
a different venue, but when your streams get broadcast to hundreds of thousands of people, there is a little bit of a responsibility to figure out, like, what are you blasting to the world.
A day with a full moon. So that was really a mistake. This person is not somebody that studied when they decided to do this well enough to make sure that the lighting conditions weren't completely optimal. But nevertheless, they planned it well enough to be able to evade the FBI for 39 days. But to your point about this, I mean, we'll find out if that's the case, if this person isn't arrested and there's any other elderly people that are attacked. I just don't think this was an elderly based.
Hills of Appalachia, you say one more thing, you're banned. So you're trying to gaslight me now? Oh, you sound like you have hurt feelings later. Bye-bye. Talk about antagonistic. Why? Because are you like a JLR worshiper or something? And you can't hear one word against them, or you cry? Little freaking baby. But, oh, I hurt his feelings.
Crime. In other words, I don't think this was a crime that was done based on the fact that she was just a elderly woman. And I just don't believe that. And I know some of my colleagues, they might believe that. And they're entitled to their own opinion. We'll find out. But the facts that we know don't tell me that. This tells me this was very specifically targeted at Nancy Guthrie. They knew her house. They knew her neighborhood. They knew she would be there. I think they knew that she had a very $40 million daughter. I think this was intended to be an abduction, intended to be for money, and it all went to heck. And they aborted the mission and got rid of Nancy. That's what Occam's razor says. A little part of me is holding out to the fact that this could be something far more sinister in terms of actually
Don't ever tell me what to do again, or you'll be banned.
targeting Savannah in a ruthless way by doing this to her mother, then further targeting her by putting in those notes, the ransom notes, and doing that for the purpose of just absolutely terrifying and harming Savannah Guthrie by somebody who is so angry. So Mac and I are on the same page. I'm about 20% on that one and 80% Occam's razor. It's hard for me to erase that the simplest solution is usually the solution when 99% of the time, I would say I would say 90% because I've had a few outliers, that 90% of the time, the simplest solution is the solution. Could this be an outlier? That's why I say I'm holding back 20%, that this is just a sick, pathetic individual that went in there, took her, tortured her inside, took her.
Because, Jimmy, people can take on the personality of the people they follow. So if you see a lot of people that seem fairly toxic following someone, not a coincidence.
And then later was responsible for these sick ransom notes, emails, I should say, calculated solely for the purpose of torturing Savannah and or Annie and or Cameron. You know, nobody's really looked at who didn't like Annie, who didn't like Tommaso. Man, if you didn't like them, you've really set this up well, because you've taken away the woman that she lived near, that she had dinners with, that knew her the best.
Oh, chat, by the way, this is a good example of someone trying to be antagonistic and gets under your skin. You are assertive. Oh, you're a child, bro. Relax. This is exactly what a narcissistic person would say to try to get under your skin and try to make you seem like you're being ridiculous because you have standards or being assertive. Don't fall for this.
that was around her all the time, that they loved so dearly. You've now taken her, torturing them, and the shroud of suspicion. Did they set that up to point at them, to further torture them? Nobody's really talked about that. So anyway.
More antagonism. I didn't tell you what to do, buddy. I said how you were acting. Actually like watching you. Ban me all you want. I'm out of here. Like you told someone earlier, this is a waste of my time. Good. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. What a blessed day.
Anyway, I'm holding out 20% of some really demonic situation like that, but 80% Occam's razor. But again, tiger, shark, diver, you're not the only one that thinks, for sure. You're not the only one that thinks this could be somebody preying on older people, and that this is a targeted attack just against old people. If that's going to be the case, then we're going to see lots of old people being targeted, or other older people being targeted in the future. All right, $1.2 million. Keep this picture up and going, because that's going to solve the case. Somebody already knows who that is. They're just not turning him in. Betrayal to them isn't worth the money. And,
so here's what I try to do. Like, I try to give my opinions on everyone, but in a respectful way. But some people don't like that. Some people think if you disagree with one person's actions, that you just hate them and then you need to be criticized. I don't operate like that, but clearly some people do operate like that.
They likely really love this person. Maybe they're in denial. Maybe they even joke about it, saying, no, it's not you. That happened in Brian Koberger. I think with the sister. Nah, it's not him. Kind of joking. Of course it's not me. Joking around. I want to remind I wanted to talk about Joe Magliolo, the assistant United States attorney, 40 years of federal prosecution, because remember, right now we have the feds and their prosecutive team looking at this under the kidnapping statute sub B that says anytime somebody is missing for longer than 24 hours, it is considered that they went across state lines. We saw them at the House, the prosecutors, the United States attorneys. That has been was disclosed. And so anyway, I want to have him on to talk about that and the other kidnapping cases he worked. He was a prosecutor in Houston for years, which is a huge city with so much crime. And then he was a federal prosecutor in Houston for decades. And
oh boy, we got some hillbilly education from Appalachia. I'm opinionative. That's Appalachian education for you. It's called opinionated, sir.
Then now he's in private practice. So, but Joe Maggs, as I like to refer to him, you guys are going to love him. If you love Dale Lundgren and some of the other guests, I'm also going to get Eric Johnson, hopefully back on, hostage negotiator back on. I want him to talk about this case with us. It's just trying to clear schedules of people who are still working full time, basically. Eric Johnson is still a polygraph examiner. He does it contract for the government. And then he also does polygraph examinations for attorneys and things like that. He's the best of the best. It is actually somebody he works with that did the polygraph on television related to the Casey Anthony case. So I had him on to kind of talk about that. If you want to look back in any of my podcasts, it was really good. He talked about, of course, for those of you who are old enough to really care, Waco. He talked about Ruby Ridge because we were both agents at that time in Houston, and his knowledge about those and what really happened. And he also talked about polygraphs in general. We cut that up a lot. And specifically the Casey Anthony polygraph of the father. So anyway, which he believes he totally passed 100%. And of course, all of us, I think we knew that that was just a ruse to point in his direction so that the real perpetrator, the mom, that Casey would not be in prison. And that's one of those cases, right? We got 3 of them that's happened, at least in my lifetime. Actually 4, another one that you guys probably don't even know about, but 4 cases were either because of jury nullification or because of just great lawyering. Guilty people are running around free. But you know what? You're only free as long as you're alive. I think everybody ultimately ends up paying when they do evil deeds. Again, I want to remind you guys, Julie and I are going to work it out, but we're going to figure out 1 hour on a particular morning. We're just going to pick a morning, pick a time frame, whether it's I propose 7 to 8 or 8 to 9. And we're just going to talk general true crime. Obviously, we'll probably always talk about Nancy at some part of that hour, but we're going to cut up all the different crimes because so much is still going on. I really want to talk and do a segment on the lieutenant colonel, the retired lieutenant colonel who's missing in New Mexico. That's really, really interesting, especially since he hasn't been found, no known mental issues. I just really, and then finally, I want to make.
By the way, while you're here, please remember to like the video. Likes are free, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already.
Sure there's no questions up here really quick before we go, and then I want to talk about the raffle. Thank you, Legendary. Thanks for being here. Yeah, Jen Network says, hey, listen, you don't know how much that Nancy has in her bank account. Sure, that's true. I've never seen a bank statement. I don't know how much she has in her bank account, but I do know she was living on a limited means. And, it's not like she was driving around in a brand new Mercedes convertible, $150,000, $200,000 car. She had a very nice house, but they bought it when it wasn't worth very much. I looked back. I'll have to look at it. I don't want to guess. And it's just obviously through all these years has appreciated. So anyway, I don't think that Tommaso's involved, and I don't think the drummer's involved. I feel really bad for that drummer. He's an educator, a teacher. He's got a child, 2 children, I think. Actually couldn't even have the children at the house because of the harassment he was getting. I am so tired of people harassing either online and of course way worse in person.
Gina, tell your son happy 29th birthday from the flock of black sheep here, from 2,500 people.
Having people have to act like this because they're afraid of being mobbed by crazy people who are going to accuse them of committing a crime they didn't commit. Anyway, Julie's going to be joining us. I'm so excited. We're going to call it Coffee and Crime with Julie and Jen, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So it's going to be casual, laid back, more like how a morning show would be, more like a Today Show, where, we might even discuss other things. We'll keep it on crime for sure. But, I tangent sometimes, and I know with Julie, we're probably going to end up tangenting. For those of you who don't know, she's an attorney. She was a practicing attorney, so she's not just some pretty face on TV. She did the job. So that is in particular why I wanted to invite her to do this, and am honored to have her on the show. All right, everyone, until next time. Oh yeah, the raffle. So I want to raffle off where we just, at the end of the month, we take the members' names, and I'm going to put in just a little FBI package. We've also got pins coming out that say Cussin' and Discussin' True Crime with Jen Coffindaffer, or I think it might say FBI Jen. Can't remember what they say. They're actually sitting up on my counter, but we're working through all of that. But this would be more of a little FBI package with some pens and patch and some different things. Probably, I'm thinking from the different units I've been in. So I was a physical trainer. If you can believe it, the Bureau has patches for everything, right? So we have, if you were a part of the physical fitness training unit, which just meant once I went to school and learned all of that, you learn all about health and nutrition and how to get in shape. And then what you do when you're out in the field is you test agents every year. There's a big test that you run them through to make sure they're in shape enough to do the job. And so that's what you do out in the field. And then obviously advise anybody who might just have questions. That's an agent. You're just there to help them out. In other words, hey, how can I lose weight? Hey, how can I build up my biceps or this or that? And we just kind of advise like that as trainers. So I've got that cool, it's a really cool patch/pin. I think I have one of each. And then I was in the weapons of mass destruction when I was in headquarters as a supervisor in the nuclear counter proliferation arena. So what I did there was 17 different operations with, and this is what I'm telling you, obviously those missions are top secret, but what I'm saying right now is not classified. We work with Flap and SEALs and other entities that those I can't name to essentially kind of take a look at individuals in our country. As you know, the Bureau is responsible for spying on spies within our borders. CIA is responsible for spy work outside of our borders. We're law enforcement. They are not. They don't have any law enforcement capabilities in our country. They don't carry guns. They don't arrest people. So anyway, I have my weapons of mass destruction. I think I have that pin. I was on the FBI Director's Personal Protective Detail, which I have to say that was probably the highlight of my career because I was the first woman to ever be attached to that detail. And it was really an honor to work with the guys on that detail. Just amazing people. I learned so much about protection, and it was just an honor. So I think I have maybe a detail pin. I can't remember. In other words, I would buy like 3 or 4. I need to look at those pins and then to see if I even have enough. I know I have 2 for sure, but those are the detail pins. Then obviously different task force pins. And just anyway, I'm going to put a little pin package together. And so anyway, we'll raffle that off from members that are at that $3.99 level. You won't have to put any money in. Just being a member gets you in the raffle. So I want to thank everybody. I'm really looking forward to doing that. And I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow on our show. Again, we're not going to have... and
that's about the end of that here. Like I said, there's nothing else going on now. We caught up on everything. We'll have to see what we talk about tomorrow. Because I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen between now and then. You have a great night, Kat. Like I said, I'm about to wrap this up here as well. We've been going for 3.5 hours here, Gina. You missed us in the beginning. You too, Janet. Thank you for becoming a member, Pamela. Now you'll be able to join our members-only live streams. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Dana. And the last thing I'll mention is about narcissistic people. That's how it will go. Some people will try to be antagonistic. And if you say anything, they'll act like, oh, it just means there's a problem with you. Oh, you're crazy, or you're soft, or you need help. You need therapy. Tale as old as time, which is why the best thing to do is to not engage with them at all. And then don't justify, argue, defend, or explain. Jade. The end. And that's why we say go no contact and block, because there just is no healthy interactions. Goodbye. Hills of Appalachia. Blocked. Because that's the thing. What they want to do is suck you into some sort of nonsense. And there's just no use. There's no use. Because it doesn't go anywhere. Blocking them is the only way to go. You have a great night, Lori. Thank you, Dana. No hype, that's right. Animal Mother, you have a great one. Take care, everyone. Ward, I didn't know you were here, Ward, but I'm glad you're here. Yes, unfortunately it is, Jensky. There's plenty of narcissistic people out there in the world. And that's right, Teresa. And that's the only way to do is once you see that, the only thing left to do is to block. And they'll probably say, oh, you're a coward and you're going to run away. But that's just them trying to get a rise out of you and be more antagonistic. They'll try to make it seem like your boundaries mean something negative about you, but it doesn't. That's just what they'll say. Yeah, we got a lot to go over there, Reg. 3 hours and 45 minutes. You have a great night, Jensky. Teresa knows. Most of the people here know because they know about the content. And like I say, I do what I preach pretty well for the most part, but even yours truly can slip from time to time. And I can give it right back. Sometimes I think it's deserved, but other times there's just, I shouldn't be. Well, happy pre-birthday, Pamela. And thank you for becoming a member. You could very easily make more than that, Mace, depending on the super chats. Just from the views, he could make 10 grand for 1 million views without super chats or memberships or anything. So could be more. The church that Savannah, the church that Nancy goes to is in New York. They go remote church. So she would go over a friend's house and they would watch a church in New York. Yeah, so then he probably does very well. Please do, Dana. Let me know. True crime and current events, Reg. So we've been talking a lot about Nancy Guthrie recently, but we did talk a lot about Michael McKee and then Nick Reiner before that. I don't know the name of the church in New York, but it's whatever church that Savannah Guthrie goes to. Right on, Pamela. I'm glad you found us. We got a good group of people here. As long as there's no trolls, but I take care of the trolls. And so do the rest of the mods. The mods do a good job. Song Bits and Livin', they do a great job here. Shady Kathy, thank you very much for your support. Bella, thank you for your support. I don't know, Moon, maybe. I couldn't tell you. Well, politics is wearing. Especially in this day and age, it's wearing. But all right, guys, thanks for your support tonight. And I'll be back again tomorrow night. So make sure you like the video on the way out and make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're not already. You have a great night, Corey, and have a great night, everyone else. Nice meeting you as well, Reg. Glad you found us. It's whatever church that Savannah Guthrie goes to, she would see it remotely. Not bad, D. 1.3 is not bad. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Over and out.